You were supposed to be the once-in-a-century sacred bone genius of the Yusinan sect, yet your closest third elder is about to gouge out your bones with his own hands. He even smiles, telling you this is your ultimate glory. You treated Chuha like a blood brother you would lay down your life for. But he can't wait to rip out your sacred bone and shove it right into his own chest. What's most ridiculous is that the sect framed you as a traitor who colluded with demonic cultivators to slaughter your own clan. Right now, you are being dragged into the dark, secret underground chamber of your clan's territory. Behind you, the heavy stone door slams shut with a deafening thud, cutting off every last bit of life from the outside world. The flickering light stretches the shadows of Chu Tianxiong and Chu Hao, distorting them into long, grotesque shapes, like two ravenous demons waiting to devour you whole. The smiles on their faces vanish instantly. All that's left is an icy, bone-chilling indifference. Third elder. Brother. What are you doing? Your voice trembles. Your heart begins to sink into a bottomless pit. He silently picks up a gleaming ancient blade from the altar. He flicks the edge gently with his fingernail. A sharp, high-pitched ring pierces your ears, making them throb with pain. Finally, he speaks. His words pelt your face like freezing ice. Chu Fan, the clan has a use for your sacred bone. As those words slip from your mouth, they feel completely weightless. You can barely even hear your own voice. You are far too soft. You can't protect our family's legacy. There isn't a single shred of warmth in Chu Tianxiong's voice. Chu Hao is ruthless. He is much more ruthless than you. He is much better suited to lead this clan. So your sacred bone belongs to him now. Consider this your final contribution to the clan. It is your ultimate glory. Glory? You feel like the biggest joke in the world. With bloodshot eyes, you glared at them. Why? Third elder, I looked up to you as my own grandfather. Chu Hao, we are brothers. Chu Hao steps forward, revealing a look of pity, like a cat playing with a trapped mouse. He reaches out and gently pats your cheek. The gesture is so sickeningly gentle, it makes your skin crawl. My dear brother Fan, don't blame us. Blame yourself. What use is a sacred treasure like this when you don't even have the brains to keep it? Keeping this sacred bone inside you is a total waste. It can only reach its true potential once it's merged with me. The moment those words leave his mouth, the array beneath his feet suddenly blazes to life, and countless chains of light rattle as they shoot out from the ground. Like venomous snakes, they instantly bind your hands and feet, pinning you brutally to the spot. In an instant, the spiritual energy inside you is completely locked down. You can't move a single inch. A gut-wrenching roar tears from your throat, a sound that doesn't even sound human. It's the desperate shriek of a wild beast driven into a corner. You struggle frantically, but it's no use. Don't move, child. Xu Chansang looks down on you like a god, his eye as cold as stone. To keep the sacred bone alive, we can't use any anesthesia. Just bear with it. It will be over soon. In the next split second, freezing, ancient blade presses against your chest. You don't even feel the pain. You only feel cold. A soul-crushing chill seeps through your skin, digging deep into your flesh, boring into your very bones, and finally, piercing your heart. You can feel it, clear as day. The sacred bone you were born with is being ripped out of your body, inch by excruciating inch. Your power, your future, and the family bonds you trusted your whole life are all being carved away, piece by piece, by this brutal blade. Your entire world shatters. God knows how much time passes before that translucent, glowing sacred bone, still dripping with your warm blood, is offered up to Chu Hao. Like a maniac, he can't wait to shove the still warm bone straight into his own chest. From this day on, I, Chu Hao, am the one and only son of the Chu family. Reveling in his soaring power, he looks down at you, crumpled on the floor like a heap of trash, and sneers. As for you, go rot in the dark. You are ruined. Through the haze, you hear the crowd outside erupting into even wilder cheers. A blessing from the heavens! Young Master Chu Hao has received a divine miracle. A miracle. That sickened irony is the last thing you hear before you black out. Two unfamiliar servants drag your limp body up, hauling you like a dead dog toward the back mountain, toward the abyss of eternal death. The freezing rain pelts your face, waking you up. You force your eyes open. The sky is pitch gray. Your heart is dead. There's a gaping hole in your chest, and your inner core is completely shattered. A total cripple. And you find yourself lying right on the edge of a cliff. Below you, the abyss of eternal death churns with swirling black mist. A chilling, ghostly wind howls up from the depths as countless phantom voices whisper in your ear. Jump. Just jump, and it won't hurt anymore. The faces of Chu Tianxiong and Chu Hao flash across your mind. You realize even this hellhole is cleaner than they are. Maybe I should just die. Once that thought takes root, it spreads like wildfire. You drag your broken body, inching closer and closer to the edge. Peace is just one step away. But right then, single furious thought explodes in your mind. Why the hell should I? Why the hell should I die? You didn't do anything wrong. Why the hell should you be the one to pay with your life? Don't you want revenge? Even uttering those two names dirties your mouth. You refuse to accept this. You're going to live. You're going to survive and watch those heartless, ungrateful bastards get exactly what they deserve. The desire to survive is like a splash of scalding water, instantly dousing your urge to die. But with the last of your strength, you roll away from the cliff edge. You're going to live. But how? You look toward the mouth of the valley. The wind there is strong enough to tear anything to shreds. Then, you look down at the bottom of the gorge. Though the aura of death down there is suffocatingly thick, it seems much quieter. You make your choice. Casting aside all your dignity, you crawl like a dog on all fours, dragging yourself down the cliff of broken bones and rotting mud toward the bottom. Your fingers are sliced open. Your knees are scraped raw, but you don't feel a thing. Your heart holds only one single obsession. You have no idea how long you've been crawling. Finally, your strength is completely spent. Your foot slips, and you lose control, tumbling all the way down. Damn it. Is this where it ends? You close your eyes, ready to say goodbye to this fucked up world. But as you tumble, your right hand flails out, and your fingers close around something. It doesn't have the icy coldness of stone, nor the hardness of bone. It's a sensation that carries a hint of warmth. You stop abruptly, and use every ounce of your strength to claw the object out of the rotting mud. This dull, grayish bead is covered in cracks. It's ugly as sin. But in this pile of corpses, that tiny bit of warmth is more blinding than the sun. Instinctively, you grip it tightly. The moment you squeeze it, that fierce resolve in your bones of, I will survive, damn it, seems to be sucked right into the bead. The cracks on the bead suddenly expand. A faint but incredibly ancient voice, instead of passing through your ears, echoes directly in your dead silent mind. How many tens of thousands of years has it been? Do you yearn for a new life? Of course, your new life is just beginning. But loneliness, that's a beast that can destroy your sanity. You think this will be your greatest enemy, but you won't even get the chance to get used to it. On the third day after you complete your foundation establishment, just as you are sitting by that tiny white flower, feeling the mystical cycle of life and death energy flowing through your body, a piercing, blood-curdling shriek rips through the eternal silence of the Valley of Despair like a rusty blade. You look up, abruptly. Immediately after, with a heavy thud, a figure plunges from the sky not far from you, slamming hard onto a pile of white bones, sending up a cloud of bone dust. You grit your teeth and stand up, but you don't go over right away. Your eyes no longer hold the innocence you once had. Only an abyss-like calmness remains inside you. You have learned your lesson, Chufan. In this godforsaken place, the slightest rustle could be a deadly trap. You walk over slowly. Your footsteps make no sound. Lying in the pile of bones is a woman. Her purple dress is already torn to shreds, stained with blood and mud. But you can still tell the fabric is of exquisite quality. Her face is covered with a veil, hiding her features. Yet, just from her figure and that exposed wrist, as white as snow, you know she is no ordinary person. There is a hideous, blackish-purple palm print on her chest, clearly the result of an incredibly brutal palm strike. Her breathing is so faint it's barely there, and she is on the verge of death. Should you save her? Or let her die? If this were the old you, you'd probably rush to help without a second thought. But now, you just stand there, watching her in silence. The reincarnation death energy inside your body even feels a strange, welcoming pull toward the deathly aura leaking from her. You think of Chu Tanxiong. You think of Chu Hao. You treated them as family. They treated you like livestock. Human hearts are far more toxic than the deathly aura in this valley. To turn to leave. Right then. The woman lets out a barely audible whimper from her throat. Driven by a primal instinct to survive, her hand weakly claws at the white bones beneath her. That movement strikes your memory like a bolt of lightning. You see yourself. You see the person who fought with everything he had to survive at the edge of that cliff. Your footsteps freeze. To hell with all the schemes and calculations. You tell yourself that you are not Zhu Tansheng, and certainly not Xu Hao. The reason you wanted to survive wasn't to turn into a monster just like them. What you seek is justice. But standing by and watching someone who wants to live die right before your eyes, doing absolutely nothing. What kind of fucking justice is that? In the next heartbeat, you are already kneeling by her side. You reach out and pull off her veil. A face, pale yet breathtakingly beautiful, is exposed defenselessly before you. You freeze for a second. Immediately snapping back to your senses, you place your fingers on her wrist. Her condition is even worse than you imagine. Her internal organs are almost completely shattered. Her heart pathways are completely eaten away by toxic energy. They're practically shattered to pieces. Even a master alchemist standing right here would just shake their head and tell her family to prepare for her funeral. To anyone else, this is a terminal diagnosis. But to you, it's the ultimate tonic. Taking a deep breath, you gently place your palm over the pitch-black handprint on her chest. The ninth cycle samsara scripture begins to circulate. You no longer need to go through the excruciating conversion process like you did in the beginning. Now it has become pure instinct. Get out of her! You growl under your breath. A visible wave of black, deathly energy surges from your palm. Like a pack of starving wolves catching the scent of blood, it instantly bores into the woman's body. But they don't cause any destruction. Instead, they pinpoint the violent toxins, the shattered fragments of her internal organs, and the clotted blood blocking her vessels. forcibly tearing away and devouring every last drop of negative energy that represents death and decay. Then, they drag it all back into your own body. Who knows how much time passes before you slowly pull your hand back. You let out a long, exhausted sigh. The woman's breathing has finally stabilized. Color returns to her cheeks, and the black handprint on her chest vanishes without a trace. Aside from her torn clothes, she looks as if she's simply fast asleep. You look down at your palm, your eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions. This is the power of the 9-cycle samsara scripture. This is what it means to control life and death itself. It isn't just about mindless slaughter, nor is it just about salvation. You can become the Grim Reaper, claiming lives in an instant, or a merciful God, saving the world from ruin. And all of this depends entirely on your whim. 2 hours later, the woman's eyelashes flutter gently, and she suddenly snaps her eyes open. There isn't a hint of drowsiness or confusion in her gaze. Instead, she is filled with intense vigilance and cold, murderous intent. Like a female leopard, ready to pounce and tear her prey apart. She bolts upright in an instant and immediately reaches for her waist. But her hand found only empty air. Searching again, she spotted a finely crafted dagger on the ground. It had fallen from her body, and only then did she notice it. Her pupils contracted sharply. She saw you clearly, and then took in the endless skeletons and black mist all around. Who are you? What is this place? And my injuries? The moment she spoke, she realized her voice was clear and full of life. Though her inner spiritual energy was completely depleted, her physical wounds were miraculously fully healed. Disbelief was written all over her face. You threw the dagger back to her. Your tone as indifferent, as if you were talking about the weather. I'm Chu Fan. This is the Valley of 10,000 Corpses. I healed your wounds. Impossible, she blurted out. I was hit by the bone-melting, heart-crushing palm. Even the gods couldn't have saved me. What on earth did you do to me? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Couldn't be bothered to explain. You turned and walked away. In this abyss, time was far more precious than any explanation. Stop! The woman flashed forward and blocked your path, moving with incredible speed. Seeing that you were completely indifferent, she took a deep breath and forced down the shock and wariness in her heart. She bowed solemnly to you. I, Yu Qingqian. Thank you, young master, for saving my life. I apologize for my rudeness earlier, and hope you can forgive me. Yu Qingqian. That name sounded a bit familiar. You stared at her in silence. Yu Qingqian felt a bit uneasy under your gaze, but she gritted her teeth and said, I am a disciple of Shenyu Palace. I was hunted by my enemies and accidentally fell here. If you can lead me out, Shenyu Palace will reward you handsomely. Sheye Palace. The top sect next to Suninshin sect that only accepted female disciples? You finally realized why it sounded so familiar. Your world and hers should have been like two parallel lines that would never cross. That now, you are both trapped in the very same hell. You looked at her face, which was filled with desperation and hope, then looked around at this boundless, deathly silent abyss, and suddenly found it rather ironic. You smirked tryly, and forced out a smile uglier than crying as he offered to lead you out. You're giving me way too much credit. In a place like this, surviving is all that matters. Your cozy world of two began to grow lonely from that moment on. That thing had stopped being an enemy to you a long time ago. 3 years. You witnessed far too much death, and with your own hands, you birthed just as many new beginnings. You were no longer that boy who talked to himself, just to fight off the loneliness. Chu Fan was now the sole ruler of this kingdom of death. But being the absolute ruler was starting to get a bit boring. You didn't want out for something as petty as revenge. After you guided over 1,000 lost souls and listened to 10,000 stories, that old grudge felt about as important as a pile of dog crap on the side of the road 3 years ago. You knew exactly where he was, but you couldn't even be bothered to glance his way anymore. You simply wanted to get out and see if the sun, which hadn't changed in 3,000 years, still looked as miserable as ever. But the exit to this valley of eternal despair was like a cheap trap, easy to slide into, impossible to escape. Even with your current power, you couldn't shatter that invisible barrier. Right then, an opportunity presented itself. Or rather, you made your own luck. You caught the sound of living voices, and there they were. 5 unlucky female disciples from Bayuan Palace, running for their lives from a vengeful spirit. With just a flick of your pinky finger, you sent a wisp of black and white energy and completely vaporized that terrifying ice fiend that had almost made them wet their pants. And while you were at it, you extended the life of that unlucky girl, Ling Yinye. Finally, you left an untraceable marker deep inside her, a signal that didn't even belong to you. It was like putting a GPS collar on a pet dog. Now, all you had to do was wait for this door you had unlocked to come back and find you on its own. Meanwhile, inside the mist-shrouded cultivation chamber of Bayuan Palace,
Ling Yinye sat cross-legged,
her face still pale. Before her stood the princess of Shenyu Palace and several elders, all of them looking incredibly solemn. You? Say that again? The princess's voice was gentle, yet carried an undeniable authority as she asked, You're saying the one who saved you in the Valley of Eternal Despair was a mysterious master, and he obliterated a 1,000-year-old ice fiend with just a wisp of his energy?
Yes, princess, Ling Yinye answered eagerly,
her cheeks flushing bright red. That energy was half black and half white. It was so gentle. Not frightening at all.
He even saved the 5 of us.
With that, He opened his palm, revealing that malevolent energy crystal. An elder specializing in spiritual artifacts stepped forward immediately and picked it up. Taking just one look, she gasped in shock. This is a malevolent energy core. It's the very essence of the thousand. Malevolent energy of the Ice Shah. Never in all my life have I seen energy this pure. Ice Shah wasn't just dispelled. It was purified. Purified. The princess frowned deeply. Yes, princess. The elder's voice was trembling. Vengeful spirits are supposed to be indestructible. Only supreme purification could cleanse a 1,000-year-old Ice Shao so effortlessly. Such power is absolutely unheard of. This senior's level of cultivation must be far beyond our wildest imagination. As soon as those words were spoken, the entire room gasped in shock. For an elder of Biome Palace to say it was beyond imagination? Just what kind of godlike being were they dealing with? The princess fell silent. She looked at the innocent Yunyin, and then back at the malevolent energy core, her eyes flickering with intense thought. A hidden master capable of easily purifying a 1,000-year-old vengeful spirit was living in the Forbidden Land right next to Buin Palace. For Buin Palace, was this a supreme blessing or a ticking time bomb? In the end, she made her decision. Hear my command. The princess's voice was absolute. From this day forth, the area for 100 miles around the Valley of Desolation is officially designated as Bayuan Palace's highest-level forbidden zone. No one is allowed to approach. Then, she turned her gaze toward Jinying, her eyes softened with complex emotions. Yanin, since that senior saved your life, and even gifted you such a treasure, it means you share a fated connection with him. Make sure you refine this malevolent energy core well. Do not disappoint the senior's expectations. Yes, princess. Yingying nodded vigorously. Her heart swelled with gratitude and deep admiration for the senior she had never even laid eyes on. Little did she know, all of this was well within your Chufan's calculations. Over the next month, you lived a very comfortable life. You were no longer in a hurry to leave. After all, the door was right there, and they held the key. What was the rush? So, you continued to stroll around the bottom of the valley. Today, you even helped a hanged ghost fulfill its final wish. Tomorrow, I guess I'll be having a heart-to-heart with a drowned ghost. Without even trying, your cultivation has advanced significantly once again. Your sensory range has slowly expanded, stretching from the very bottom of the abyss to the entire valley of eternal despair. You can even hear those disciples from Bayun Palace outside the valley, hyping you up to be some white-bearded old grandpa. Didn't I tell you? There's a peerless master living right next to us. Of course, even Senior Sister Lin said the senior obliterated a 1,000-year-old vengeful spirit with just a flick of his wrist. I bet that senior's some mystical, white-haired immortal with a youthful glow. Listening to all this gossip, you almost laugh out loud. An old immortal? I'm only 19, damn it. But just as you are thoroughly enjoying the gossip, an urgent, desperate cry suddenly shatters your peaceful moment. Senior, please save me. It is Ling Yunin's voice. Your brow furrows slightly. Instantly, you lock your sensory focus onto her. The scene immediately unfolds inside your mind. Inside the cultivation chamber on Bayun Palace's back mountain, Fei Lingyan is rolling on the ground in agonizing pain. She was trying to refine that malevolent core using the technique given by her sect, but she completely underestimated just how violent and overbearing this 1,000-year-old malevolent energy really was. Right now, the rampaging, chaotic energy is tearing through her inside, completely out of control. Her meridians are rupturing inch by inch, and those deadly ash-gray patterns are creeping across her skin once again. The spiritual energy inside her cannot suppress this violent force at all. She is on the verge of literally exploding to death, caught in a grip of excruciating pain and absolute despair. She thinks of that mysterious senior. And for a da, she has no idea if it will even work. But like a drowning person clutching at a final straw, she screams for him frantically in her mind, and you hear her. Think. What a troublesome little girl. Even though you sound annoyed, your movements are incredibly fast. Here we go. Closing your eyes, you send out a thought. Hundreds of miles away, inside the UN Palace chamber, think Linking In, who is right on the edge of self-destruction, suddenly feels the malevolent core on her wrist burn intensely hot. The next instant, the yin-yang energy you had previously sealed inside it is immediately activated. Instead of suppressing the rampaging malevolent energy, it does the exact opposite. It forms a miniature vortex, actively drawing in and absorbing all that violent energy. Shufan uses his remote control to put on a live, step-by-step masterclass of the 9 Revolutions Reincarnation Sutra right inside her body. You guide that chaotic energy, channeling it along the paths of the Reincarnation Sutra, completing a minor cycle within her. First, flood her fragile meridians with the darkest, deadliest death energy. Then, transform that force into the purest life energy to rebuild them from scratch. To rebuild, you must first destroy. First freezing cold, then burning hot. A fine line between life and death. This extreme, mind-blowing sensation of fire and ice nearly made Lin Yan pass out from sheer ecstasy right then and there. By the time she finally snapped out of it, the secret chamber had fallen completely silent again. She looked inside herself and was instantly paralyzed with shock. Not only were her damaged meridians fully repaired, but they were also several times wider and stronger than before. Her cultivation power even shattered its limits in an instant, jumping 2 entire levels in a row, and that dark core of death energy had completely vanished, fully absorbed and integrated as her own power. Just like that, I broke through. Lin Yuing was absolutely dumbfounded. A threshold she couldn't even touch after years of brutal, agonizing training crossed effortlessly after just a little remote guidance from the senior. Just like that. Senior, are you still taking disciples? The kind who can keep your bed warm? Meanwhile, deep inside the Valley of 10,000 Corpses, you slowly open your eyes.
You let out a yawn. The path is paved.
Through your remote control just now, you didn't just help her achieve a breakthrough. More importantly, you used her body as a conduit to silently plant a crucial reincarnation mark, packed with the laws of space, right onto the guardian barrier of Beyond Palace. Now, that supposedly indestructible barrier is nothing more than your own backyard gate. You can come as you please and leave whenever you want. It's time to go out for a little walk. With a single step forward, your figure instantly vanishes from the peak of the Dragon Bones. In the next second, you appear right outside Lin Yuing's secret chamber, deep in the back mountains of Beyond Palace. Under the moonlight, you finally see your own reflection for the first time in 3 years. Your long hair sways gently, without any wind, and you wear a pitch-black robe woven purely from death energy, contrasting sharply with your pale, almost sickly skin.
Those eyes of yours look like they could swallow a person's very soul.
You gaze up at the moon and take a deep breath of fresh, flower-scented air, free from the stench of rotting corpses. World, a wicked smirk curls on your lips. Your king has arrived. At the entrance of the Valley of 10,000 Corpses, you stand before the shimmering barrier of light, closing your eyes to form hand seals as the black and white Tai Chi vortex in your danshin begins to spin, slowly. The power of reincarnation seeps from your fingertips, pressing directly onto the barrier. The glowing wooden trunk silently splits open, revealing a narrow slit. You step out. The sunlight is blinding. A wave of heat hits your face. The air is thick with the scent of wild plants and spiritual energy. 3 years. You raise your hand, pressing your entire overwhelming aura back down into your core. Instantly, your presence drops, becoming even weaker than an ordinary mortal's. You rummage through your storage bag and pull out a set of cheap, coarse hemp clothes. After changing, you tie your hair up with a piece of straw rope and start heading down the mountain. Yuanshan City is just 300 miles away. On its cobblestone streets, the shouting of street vendors and intense bargaining blend into a noisy chaos. You walk inside, and not a single soul gives you a second glance. By a roadside tea stall, a few rogue cultivators are shouting at the top of their lungs. Hey, did you hear? That monster from the Chu family broke through to a new cultivation realm again just 2 days ago. Wait. Wasn't he only at the late stage of core formation 6 months ago? It's absolutely true. They say some fortune he found in a secret realm awakened his sacred bone, sending him soaring straight to the top. He's not even 20, yet he's already at the peak of core formation. He's the only one like that in the entire Eastern Wasteland. Don't even slow your pace. A fortune in a secret realm? An awakened sacred bone. Chu Ten Shang sure knows how to spin a beautiful lie. You walk further. On the most prominent bulletin board in the city center, a wanted poster catches your eye, depicting a young man with sharp, sword-like eyebrows and brilliant stars. That was you, 3 years ago. The bold, blood-red characters write clearly. Chu Fan, outcast of the Yutushan sect, colluded with demonic cultivators to murder his own kin. Bring him back dead or alive for a top-tier cultivation technique and direct entry into the inner sect. In the crowd, a scholar waving a fan is the most. A vile traitor like that is a stain on this world, just by breathing. A burly man next to him joins in the cursing. I heard the Chu family head caught him red-handed. If he hadn't run so fast, he'd be dead already. What a well-crafted lie. Every word designed to completely ruin me. Looking at your own portrait, you don't feel angry, nor does it stir even a ripple of emotion in your heart. Having spent 3 years listening to the raw, obsessive regrets of billions of dead spirits, these petty rumors don't even qualify as a tiny splash. After studying it for a moment, you offer a quiet critique. The artist's skill is lacking. It lacks a bit of composure. You turn and walk away. Star Plucking Tower is the grandest tavern in Yusinjin City. You find a quiet corner and sit down. Tossing a low-grade spirit stone onto the table, you order
A pot of cheap tea.
the waiter glances at your coarse hemp clothes, and his polite smile fades a little, but he brings the tea anyway. In the middle of the main hall, a storyteller suddenly slaps his wooden gavel down. Today, we talk about the absolute biggest event of our Yuanshan sect in near 3 days from now. The grand sect competition begins. The sect master himself is coming out of seclusion to ordain Chu Hao as the first holy son of the new Xinshan sect. The entire crowd was in an absolute uproar. A holy son's. We haven't seen a grand spectacle like this in decades, and Chu Hao deserves every bit of it. Word is, even the elders of Beyond Palace and the Heavenly Sword Pavilion are coming to witness the ceremony. They take a slow sip of your tea. It's so bitter that you practically see stars. In 3 days, all eyes will be on them, enveloped in ultimate glory. Chuhao and Chu Chen climb to the very top by stepping on your torn tendons. They must feel so secure up there. Your finger gently taps on the table. You're not going back to explain yourself, and you're not going to beg for justice. Those things are completely pointless. What was taken must be returned. What is owed must be settled.
初向山广松出好，他为了扬上几把刀，平治气节，显现礼布置。
Then, at the very moment of his greatest glory, I will smash this false god to pieces. No destruction, no rebirth. The storyteller's voice rises even higher. This competition has a fresh new twist. To show our sect's broad-mindedness, think special spots have been reserved, allowing rogue cultivators to participate. What? Even rogue cultivators can enter? But the reward is a spot in the sect's sacred realm. Calm down, calm down. The storyteller says, quieting the crowd. 10 ascension stages have been set up right in front of the City Lord's mansion. Think 10 consecutive matches within 3 days? And survive 3 moves from a sect deacon, and you'll receive a comeback token. The entire hall explodes with excitement. Your finger stops tapping. The Uguitian sect's guardian array is incredibly tight and difficult to breach. Forcing your way in would easily alert the Grand Supreme Elders. Although your mind and soul are at peak state, your physical body has only just been reconstructed. Going up against those century-old monsters right now would be a massive headache. Walking straight through the front gate, fair and square, is the easiest way. You stand up, brush off your sleeves, and walk toward the door. Excuse me, sir. You haven't even finished your tea. You don't even look back. Time to get to work. In the square outside the City Lord's mansion stands a massive bluestone arena, towering right in the center. Deafening explosions of spiritual energy clash and echo across the arena. On arena number 3, Eldar giant wielding dual axes kicks a swordsman straight off the stage. That is the 8th one. Who else wants some? Any other Foundation Establishment cultivator? He is a peak Foundation Establishment physical cultivator, tough, thick-skinned, and his strikes are brutally ruthless. The previous challengers all ended up with broken arms or shattered legs. Below the stage, the crowd just stares at each other in sheer. No one dares to step up. He glances at the sundial. Half an incense stick's worth of time has passed, and still, nobody has stepped. Time is up. You lose by default. The bald giant sneers, slinging his axes over his shoulders as he prepares to step down. Just then, the crowd parts, and a figure in coarse hemp robes slowly walks up the wooden steps from the side of the stage. There is no fluctuation of spiritual energy and no fancy footwork. Yet, he's already standing in the center of the stage. His gaze sweeps past the bald giant and locks onto the deacon in charge. Rogue cultivator. Registering for the fight. The sect bell tolls 9 times. At the main peak of the Unitian sect, the Sea of Clouds parts. On the white marble square, 3,000 inner court disciples stand in formation according to their cultivation level, casting a cold, sharp gleam across the entire martial arts arena. High above on the main grandstand, Master Shuangfang sits cross-legged with his eyes closed. On either side of him sit the elders of each peak. Also present are specially invited elders from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion and Baiyun Palace. Chu Tensheng sits in the 3rd seat to Master Xuanfang's left. He is clad in a dark gold robe adorned with a white jade pendant, his face practically glowing with unsuppressible pride. Stroking his beard, the elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion speaks. Patriarch Chu, I hear your son broke through to another realm, truly worthy of congratulations. Breaking through 2 realms in just 3 years. In all my years, I have never seen such a talent.
Chu Chengsang waves his hand in mock humility.
Though his back straightens even more with pride, the elder overpraise him. The boy only achieved this by relying on the nurturing of our great sect. He is still young. His character still needs some tempering. He possesses the sacred bone and is blessed by the heavenly Tao. A female elder from the Beyond Palace chimes in. Today he is to be crowned Holy Son. It is well deserved indeed. Yet, behind the flattery of these old foxes lies nothing but calculating schemes. In the very center of the square, the Jade Arena erupted with a thunderous boom. A figure in pristine white robes descended from the sky. With a crisp, sharp click, his sword slid back into its sheath. Zhihao tall in the dead center of the arena. Crowned in jade, he stood silent and aloof, unleashing the terrifying pressure of his golden core peak realm to its absolute limit. Waves of golden energy surged outward, radiating from him. It was the undeniable aura of the sacred bone's origin. The outer court disciples stumbled backward one after another, their eyes filled with absolute dread and reverence. Greetings, Senior Brother Chu. 3,000 disciples roared in unison. Their voices so deafening, they made the very sea of clouds churn and boil. Zhihao gave a slight, dismissive nod, his cold gaze sweeping across the crowd, before finally locking onto Chu Tensheng up on the high platform. As their eyes met, a silent agreement passed between them. He had to win this, and he had to win beautifully. He would show the entire eastern region that he, Chu Hall, was the one and only true favored son of heaven. Meanwhile, on the dusty outer edges of the square, there were no elegant white jade seats in the rogue cultivators' viewing area. There were only cold, uneven stone slabs. Hundreds of rogue cultivators, who had failed to secure a slot, huddled together, crane-necking and standing on tiptoe just to get a glimpse. You stood at the very back, a bamboo hat pulled low to cover most of your face. Your coarse hemp robe was so worn it had faded to a dusty white, and your hands were tucked quietly inside your sleeves. You didn't bother squeezing forward to watch Chu Hao's grand display. Instead, your ears twitched slightly. The distant cheering, the elder's pathetic flattery, and the violent surge of spiritual energy within Chu Hao's body. All of it was crystal clear to you. You sighed quietly. His spiritual energy was incredibly thin and chaotic. In your heart, You made a silent judgment. A stolen sacred bone, paired with an artificially forced realm.
Nothing but a golden facade on the outside.
Hiding hollow decay on the inside.
Choyao couldn't even control the leaking aura of the sacred bone.
What is stolen and fake will always be fake.
You turned around and walked toward the side hall gates on the west side of the square. That was the entrance corridor for rogue cultivators. Over the past 3 days, you had won 10 consecutive matches on the Ascending Heaven Arena. Getting the wooden token is just a foot in the door.
In front of the grand gates of the side hall.
A long rosewood table is set up, where rogue cultivators who registered with their real names are lined up in a row. Behind the table stands a figure in a gray robe, staring at the 2 silver stripes on his chest.
Late Foundation established stage.
The deacon taps the table. Everyone shuts up instantly. The ascension tokens in your hands prove you're decent fighters in this city. But behind these doors sit the esteemed guests of the major sects. He walks around to the front of the table, flicking his robe. The sect master is generous enough to give you rogue cultivators a chance to watch and learn. But to prevent anyone from breaking the rules, as per custom, you must pass one final test before entering.
Take 1 strike from me.
If you take no more than 3 steps back, you pass. Hearing this, the faces of nearly 10 rogue cultivators pale instantly. They had just fought 10 brutal rounds in the arena, depleting most of their spiritual energy, and now they have to face a late Foundation establishment cultivator at full strength? I'll go first. A shirtless, muscular man steps forward and slams his token down.
Deacon, please show me what you've got.
The deacon nods. With a loud roar, the burly man crosses his arms to shield his chest. His earth element spiritual energy condenses into a thick, heavy rock armor. The deacon doesn't even draw his sword. He simply raises his hand. A swirling green vortex of wind forms in his palm as he strikes out effortlessly. The moment the vortex leaves his hand, it expands rapidly, tearing through the air with a deafening screech. The burly man's arms go completely numb. A massive, overwhelming force surges into him. His feet plow 2 deep grooves into the bluestone floor, and he is forced back 4 steps. Your strength is decent, but your stance is too weak. The deacon withdraws his hand. Go back and train for another few years. Leave the token behind and get out. The burly man is filled with resentment, but he doesn't dare make a scene. He cups his hands in respect and turns to leave. The second challenger, a sword cultivator, is struck in the shoulder by the wind gust. He staggers back 7 steps and leaves in shame. The third challenger barely manages to stop at 3.5 steps, but is still sent packing. Out of 9 challengers, only 2 passed the test. They were pushed back only 2 steps each, securing their spots purely on the solid foundation of their true energy. Now, for the last challenger. Deacon Lee speaks in a flat, indifferent tone as the gaze falls to the very end of the line. You have already stepped forward slowly, placing a heavily scratched wooden token onto the table.
Deacon Lee glances down at it.
Then looks back up to stare at you. You are wearing rough burlap clothes, straw sandals, and a bamboo hat that completely hides your face. What bothers him the most is that you don't have even a shred of spiritual energy radiating from you. Your presence is so utterly suppressed that you look exactly like an ordinary mortal. He frowns. Although the Dundee Arena doesn't care about a person's background, those who have made it up here over the past few days have all been ruthless characters who survive on the edge of a blade. Yet, the person standing before him seems to have absolutely no cultivation foundation. How on earth did you win 10 consecutive matches? Could it be some cheap, underhanded cheating? Sir, what kind of cultivation method do you specialize in? Their voice turns cool. Just a simple mountain breathing technique. It is not worth mentioning. Your voice is perfectly steady, completely devoid of any pretense or fear. A flash of sharp displeasure crosses Deacon Lee's eyes. He takes your response as sheer contempt and a deliberate cover-up. Today, the Winded Sect is welcoming guests from all over. If I let a useless nobody with 0 spiritual energy slip in and offend our distinguished guests, I won't be able to bear the consequences. Did you hear the rules? With a violent sweep of his embroidered sleeve, he steps forward with his right foot, holding absolutely nothing back. Green spiritual energy surges and gathers in his palm, 3 times more powerful than the strike he just used against that sword cultivator. The wind howls fiercely, whipping the robes of several nearby rogue cultivators back and forth. They all scrabble backward. Take this. His arm thrusts forward, aiming a brutal blow directly at your chest, as the biting gale forces you to pelt backward. The 2 rogue cultivators who just passed the test shake their heads in pity, thinking that if this strike lands, this youth in burlap is bound to be severely injured. Yet, you stand there frozen in place. No retreat, no defense. You don't even pull your hands out of your sleeves. In the blink of an eye, the devastating palm strike is upon you. The exact millisecond his palm makes contact with your burlap clothes, the black and white vortex inside your dantine slowly rotates 1/10 of a turn. A trace of incredibly restrained samsara power flows along your meridians, quietly concentrating at your chest. There is no flash of spiritual light and no deafening blast. Deacon Lee's palm strike lands dead center, slamming solidly against your chest. Suddenly, a bizarre, eerie silence falls over the crowd. The devastating impact everyone expected never happens. You didn't even move a single corner of your robe. You simply stand there, hands still tucked quietly inside your sleeves, as steady as Mount Tai. Deacon Lee's pupils contract in absolute shock. He feels as though his palm hasn't hit flesh and blood at all. It was like striking into a bottomless abyss. The cyan wind vortex, tacked with all of his Foundation establishment, true essence. The very moment it touched your body, vanished completely, swallowed whole. He couldn't feel even a shred of rebound. And when he tried to pull his hand back, he couldn't move it at all. His palm felt as if it were locked in place by an invisible vortex, and the spiritual energy in his body began violently draining out through his arm. Panic instantly surged up his spine, cold sweat pouring down in massive beads as he slowly raised his head. Beneath the bamboo hat, a pair of deep, calm eyes glanced back at him. Deacon Lee's mind was roaring. It was as if the sighs of 10,000 fallen clans echoed in his ears.
With a sudden jolt in his palm,
A gentle yet unstoppable force surged backward through his meridians. Off balance, he stumbled back 5 steps, crashing hard onto the red sandalwood table. The impact shoved the table back 3 feet. His vital energy was in complete chaos, and half his body went completely numb. He stared at you in sheer shock, unable to utter a single word. Beside him, the 2 rogue cultivators gaped so wide you could have stuffed an egg in their mouths, staring at you like you were a monster. You reached out, picked up the wooden token from the edge of the table, and slowly raised your eyes. How many steps did I take back? Your question hung in the silence. Deacon Lee didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the coarse cloth on your chest. That strike just now, a cyan wind vortex backed by 30% of his true essence. The moment it hit your hemp shirt, there was no resistance, no rebound. It had simply vanished into thin air. He tried to sense it, but his connection to it was completely severed. And then, a gentle yet irresistible force had pushed him back. Deacon Lee swallowed hard. His meridians were trembling, and his energy core was shocked into a complete standstill. He looked up. Beneath your bamboo hat, your eyes were dead calm, without a single ripple. It was this exact calmness that sent a shiver down his spine. Having survived in the outer sect for decades, he had met countless people. This young man in coarse hemp clothes, who didn't even show a shred of spiritual energy, was definitely hiding his true cultivation level. I didn't hold back at all on that strike, he thought. The 2 rogue cultivators nearby couldn't wrap their heads around what had happened. The brawny man looked completely bewildered, and the body cultivator's brow furrowed deep in confusion.
Deji took a deep breath,
Adjusted his gray robe and walked back to the desk. He picked up the wooden token. This time, he didn't hand it over with one hand. Instead, he stepped forward, holding the edges with both hands, and respectfully presented it to you. He lowered his posture and took half a step back, his voice dropping several octaves. This is your combat token. Ryu reached out and took it. Your fingers didn't even brush against his palm. Thanks, you murmured, slipping it into your sleeve as you turned and walked away. Behind you, the vermilion gates slowly closed, and sunlight poured down upon the white marble pathway. At the end of the pathway, the view suddenly opened up. A massive martial arts square lay before you, vast enough to hold tens of thousands of people. An azure protective barrier was weaving together in midair, with 10 bluestone stages laid out in precise directions. 3,000 inner sect disciples were lined up in perfect formation, their azure robes fluttering in the wind. At the very front, a red carpet rolled out across a high platform, where 18 carved wooden chairs were placed.
Doi Struanfang sat right in the center, with Xu Chanxiong seated third on his left. You didn't walk forward.
Instead, you slipped along the edge, entering the preparation area for rogue cultivators and outer sect disciples. Leaning against a pillar, you pulled down your bamboo hat and rested your folded hands in front of you. In the center of the square, Chihao stood proudly on the foremost stage. His golden spiritual energy was slowly retracting into his body as the surrounding cheers shook the very heavens. Chuhao looked up at the high platform,
And Chu Tangsheng raised his teacup, giving a slight nod.
Their interaction was witnessed by everyone in the arena, and you watched them too. Your gaze pierced through the crowd and locked onto Chu Hao. You could see the flow of that golden spiritual energy with absolute clarity. That was once your spiritual marrow. 3 years had passed, and he had mostly adapted to this power. Yet, there was still a slight sluggishness in his meridians, forcing growth. That was the only word for it.
On the high platform, Daos Chuanfeng stood up.
He didn't use any voice-amplifying treasures, yet his voice rang clearly in everyone's ears. The grand tournament of the Uichin sect begins today. The rules remain the same. 10 arenas will erupt in battle at the exact same time.
winners advance.
And the losers are eliminated. If a rogue cultivator manages to win 3 matches in a row, they will instantly secure outer disciple status. And if they reach the top 10, they will enjoy the full benefits of a core inner disciple. An anxious murmur spreads through the preparation area. Countless fighters tighten their grip on their weapons. To rogue cultivators with no backing, this is their ultimate springboard to change their destiny. You lean quietly against a pillar as a black and white vortex of energy spins silently within you. All the greed, tension, and frantic excitement around you are completely shut out. The red-robed elder steps to the edge of the high platform, its hands instantly forming a powerful seal. A beam of white light shoots into the sky, transforming into a massive light screen that blankets all 10 arenas. On the screen, a dense list of names begins to scroll rapidly. Draw for the very first round has begun. You look up. Back when you signed up, you casually wrote down a single word with a twig. You. 10 breaths later, the scrolling names stop. Amanda 7. Condition said outer disciple Zhao Yan versus rogue cultivator Shu. The preparation area erupts into chaos. Not 5 steps away from you, a group of outer disciples is gathered together. In their center is a man in a crimson robe, carrying a massive, windless heavy sword on his back. The scorching heat radiating from him is absolutely terrifying. No one dares to stand within a few paces of him. This is Zhao Yan. He grips the hilt of the sword behind him, loosening up his shoulders. Senior brother Zhao, congratulations.
Fighting a rogue cultivator in the first round is going to save you so much energy.
Another disciple eagerly sidles up to him,
Zhao Yan lets go of the hilt.
a relaxed smirk playing on his lips.
My luck is indeed
I can save my strength to deal with our fellow disciples in the next round.
Of course. Senior brother, your blazing sword art has already reached the 6th stage.
There are barely any rivals left for you in the outer sect.
Getting into the inner sect this time, thing practically a done deal. For you.
Philo enjoying the flattery.
His eyes swept across the crowd of rogue cultivators, searching for you. The one named Su, who didn't even dare use a full name and was acting all secretive.
But you didn't budge when you heard him pushing off from the stone pillar.
You walked with the crowd toward the 7th arena.
Your steps were incredibly steady.
Each stride exactly the same length.
As the first round of combatants was called up,
20 figures leaped onto the stages. Zhao Yan kicked off the ground with force,
carving a crimson arc through the air.
before landing heavily in the center of the platform.
His heavy sword clanged against the stone with a deep, metallic thud. The outer disciples burst into a chorus of cheers. With his arms crossed over his chest, he looked down at the crowd, oozing arrogance.
You didn't jump. Instead, you just walked up the stone steps, one single pace at a time.
No spiritual energy rippled from you.
No fancy movement techniques. To everyone else, you looked like a mere mortal climbing stairs.
This guy
Can't even fly onto the stage?
look at what he's wearing.
He doesn't have a single drop of chi in him. How did a loser like this even get into the tournament?
He won't even last one strike from Brother Zhao. The mocking chatter filled Zhao Yan's ears.
He watched you slowly making your way up, his brow furrowing with annoyance.
Your lifeless, unbothered look irritated him. As you stepped onto the final stair, you stopped just 10 paces away from him. The referee merely glanced at both of you and muttered,
State your names.
No lethal blows. Whoever goes out of bounds or surrenders is defeated.
Zhang Yang gripped his sword hilt, and scorching, fire attribute chi erupted from his body.
His blade glowed with a menacing crimson light.
The Wei-Shen sect, outer division.
Zhao Yan. His voice dripped with absolute confidence. But you just stood there, motionless. You didn't draw your weapon.
You didn't even channel your inner energy.
You simply raised a hand and took off your bamboo hat. The bright shot of your face. A face that hadn't seen the light of day in 3 long years.
Calm. Complete. Terrifying calm.
His eyes reflected the raging flames blazing around Zhao Yan. Rogue cultivator Chu Fan's voice pierced through the howling heat wave,
Falling clearly on the ears of everyone around the 7th arena, freezing the entire square in an instant.
To most outer disciples and rogue cultivators, the name just sounded vaguely familiar, but they couldn't quite place where they had heard it before.
But up on the high platform, the atmosphere shifted instantly.
The hand of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Elder, stroking his beard, froze.
The smile on the Beyond Palace female elder's face stiffened, and Chu Tanchung's hand, holding his teacup, trembled violently.
Scalding hot tea splashed all over his dark gold robes.
But he was completely oblivious to it. His eyes were glued to that sackcloth-clad figure standing on the 7th arena.
The color drained from his face at a visible rate. Chu Fan, the very same kid whose dantian he had personally destroyed 3 years ago. The outcast he had thrown into the bottomless abyss of death. Shouldn't he have long turned to dust, his soul torn to shreds by the dark, malevolent energy? How could he possibly still be alive? How could he be standing here?
Chu Fan slowly opened his closed eyes.
His gaze pierced through hundreds of yards
And locked onto that face, at once familiar yet so foreign.
On the arena, Joanne's frown deepened even more. He knew that name, of course.
The greatest disgrace of the Yuminshan sect from 3 years ago. The outcast on the wanted list for colluding with demon cultivators.
He didn't believe that this weak, fragile-looking guy standing before him,
Who didn't even have a sliver of spiritual energy fluctuation, could be the genius who once rivaled senior brother Chu Hao. Stop playing tricks.
Joanne snorted coldly.
Using the name of a sect outcast is just begging for death.
Or did you think it would make me go easy on you?
Chu Fan completely ignored him. He didn't even spare him a single glance, casually placing his bamboo hat in a corner of the arena. His movements were completely unhurried, as if he were just tidying up in his own backyard.
This total disregard infuriated Zhao Yan far more than any verbal comeback ever could.
He was being utterly looked down upon. Order! The referee merely cast a glance at the high platform, where everyone's expressions had turned tense. Then looked bad at the 2 men standing at each other's throats, and swung his right hand down sharply. Let the match begin.
Zhao Yan's repressed rage and spiritual energy erupted simultaneously.
His fire-attributed true chi surged entirely into his heavy sword, sending a blazing aura shooting straight into the sky. The surrounding air warped under the intense, scorching heat. Raging opera Miriasts, raging fire sword art, the force of a wildfire. He took a violent step forward. The Bluestone arena groans under the pressure. Gripping the sword with both hands, he unleashes a devastating downward cleave. A torrent of flames slashes down toward your head. The massive shadow of the blade is colossally huge, threatening to burn mountains and boil. The entire stage is illuminated, glowing a fiery red. Below the stage, the disciples scramble backward in panic, their faces pale with sheer horror. This single strike has completely exceeded the level of an outer sect disciple. Even an inner sect senior brother who has just entered the foundation establishment stage would find this a nightmare. They can already picture you being burned to ashes. Yet, you still stand right there, making no move to dodge or block. There isn't even a flicker of emotion on your face. Only when that massive blade shadow is about to crash onto your body do you finally make a move, slowly raising your right hand. No rushed movements, no channeling of spiritual energy. You just raise your hand in a completely ordinary way, extending a single index finger.
Clean, slender,
And finely jointed. In the midst of the sky-burning flames, this single finger looks almost laughably insignificant. What is he trying to do? What is he trying to do? Blocking Senior Brother Zhao's spiritual heavy sword with a single finger? Is he insane? A crueler smirk flashes across Zhao Yan's eyes. You are asking for death.
Your eyes fall upon that burning, heavy sword.
In the calm depths of your eyes, a faint glimmer, halfway between black and white, entirely imperceptible to ordinary people, reflects silently. Your index finger doesn't meet the blade's edge, nor does it block the tip. Amidst the howling wind of the slash, you aim with perfect precision and tap it lightly on the side of the blade. A soft clink echoes, like jade gently clashing, or a drop of morning dew falling, under the gaze of tens of thousands of onlookers. Time seems to slow down. At the exact point where your fingertip meets the sword, no energy explodes. But the blazing flames roaring on that heavy sword are instantly wiped away by an invisible hand, leaving not a single spark behind. Immediately after, the red glow on the blade recedes like an ebbing tide. Inside the blade, the runes channeling spiritual energy flicker violently once before dying out completely, along with the sharp, vibrant glow unique to a low-grade spiritual weapon. In a 10,000th of a second, the sword turns a dull, lifeless grayish black. The smirk on Zhao Yan's face freezes. He feels the blood-linked, telepathic spiritual connection between himself and the heavy sword, instantly severed by a cold, lifeless force. Completely and forever. The hand gripping the hilt cannot feel even a shred of spiritual feedback. The sword in his palm is dead. Clang. A dull, heavy metallic crash echoes. The heavy sword, stripped of its spiritual essence, slipped from Zhao Yan's stiff grip, clattering onto the bluish stone floor. It didn't make the crisp, resonant ring of a spiritual weapon. Instead, it was just the dull, heavy thud of ordinary metal hitting the ground. Dead silence fell over the entire arena. Tens of thousands of eyes were locked onto the seventh stage.
What did they just witness?
A single finger, just tapping the blade, a low-grade spiritual sword, fully charged with Foundation Establishment energy, was instantly reduced to useless scrap metal. Zhao Yan stared blankly at the ground, at the useless piece of metal, and then at his empty hands. His bit trembled. My sword, how can this be? To a sword cultivator. Having their soulbound sword destroyed is a fate worse than defeat, let alone in such a bizarre, completely illogical way. The referee just stood there, jaw dropped, frozen in shock. He completely forgot to announce the results, as the spectator stands erupted in an uproar. What on earth was that? An elder of the Heavenly Sword sect suddenly shot to his feet, gasping in absolute disbelief. Erasing its spiritual essence? How is that even possible? Even a Nascent Soul Grandmaster couldn't strip a sword of its essence so flawlessly, without leaving a trace. This isn't some martial arts technique, and it's definitely not brute force. A female elder from the Juan Palace widened her eyes in shock, her voice trembling. That was absolute annihilation at the level of cosmic laws. Rather, total dissolution.
出浅香霸地，比肩的血暗成仇了。
He remembered the boy he had severely beaten and injured 3 years ago. Back then, the boy's eyes had been just as calm as they were now. But back then, it was the calm of despair. Now it was the calm of looking down from above. A gaze of absolute dominance that chilled him to the very depths of his soul. He really is back. He returned with a power that none of them could even begin to comprehend. The dead silence in the square lasted only a few seconds, before being completely drowned out by a deafening tsunami-like roar of chatter. Sorcery. That has to be forbidden sorcery. Is that really the disciple whose cultivation was destroyed 3 years ago? What on earth did I just witness today? Amidst the chaos, you pulled back your finger and walked to the corner of the stage. You bent down, picking up your rough straw hat and placing it back on your head. Once again, the face that had just shocked the entire crowd was hidden from view. You turned your head, looking down at the utterly devastated Zhao Yan. He admitted defeat in just 4 words. It was the very first sentence spoken since the match began. Only then did the referee snap out of his daze. He glanced up at the powerful figures on the high platform, all wearing grave expressions, and then looked back down at the shattered metal on the ground. He swallowed hard. Meanwhile, you didn't linger on the 7th arena for even 1 more second. You turned around and calmly walked down the stone steps, step by step, passing through the crowd who watched you. With a mix of awe, fear, and curiosity, you returned to the most inconspicuous corner of the preparation area, leaning back against the pillar and cutting your hands back into your sleeves. It was as if the person who had just shocked the entire arena wasn't you at all. Up on the high platform and seating area of the Buyun Palace, a stunning woman with a white veil covering her face, and a cold, ethereal aura shifted her gaze away from the distant sea of clouds. For the first time, her eyes fell upon your figure, dressed in coarse hemp robes and wearing a bamboo hat. A deep look of confusion flickered in her eyes, which were as clear as autumn waters. Sister, are you? A delicate-looking girl beside her noticed her unusual behavior. This girl was none other than Ling Yamin, whom you had rescued from the Valley of 10,000 Corpses. The veiled woman's ruby lips parted slightly, her voice as cold and clear as moonlight. That power just now, the one that annihilated everything, does it feel like the aura you described? The one that purified hundreds of millions of dead souls deep within the valley?
Ling Ying's pupils contracted sharply.
Deep inside the valley of 10,000 corpses.
That grand, majestic aura, which purified hundreds of millions of dead souls, had been seared into her very soul like a brand.
Sister, that power?
It isn't destruction.
It's peace. She tried hard to recall her memories, struggling to put the feeling into words. It allowed those resentful souls, who had struggled for 1,000 years, to finally find their resting place.
Just like that sword just now.
Its life was quietly brought to an end.
Hearing this,
Yi Tingting's cold eyes lit up with an even brighter glow. She nodded gently, her voice filled with absolute certainty. Purification and annihilation lead to the same destination. At their core, both are the ultimate judgment over existence itself, a power close to divine authority. The words divine authority sent a jolt of shock through the hearts of the nearby Bayonne Palace elders. Sister, then he is... Ling Ying quickly covered her mouth, her eyes brimming with excitement. It is almost certain.
Jie Qin's gaze pierced through the crowd,
Landing on your figure, leaning against the stone pillar, completely detached from the world. He is indeed the savior we have been looking for. Why did he hide his identity?
thinking Indian had a straightforward personality.
And wanted to rush over immediately to thank him.
Chu King held her back, warning her through telepathy. Don't go, since our savior used a fake name.
He obviously doesn't want to expose himself. Going over there now will only bring him trouble. He has his own things to do. If we want to repay his kindness, we shouldn't disrupt his plans.
Lin Yingyu nodded vigorously. I'll do whatever you say, senior sister.
Green released a tiny, almost imperceptible thread of her spiritual sense, wrapping around the corner where you stood like a transparent breeze. She wasn't trying to pry, but simply wished to keep those malicious, greedy, and prying eyes quietly at bay, shielding a small, peaceful space just for you.
In that corner, you kept your eyes closed. Yet, the black and white vortex inside you could clearly perceive everything. You sensed a cool, well-meaning strand of spiritual sense,
shielding you from distractions like gentle moonlight. You heard a curious, grateful gaze watching you cautiously, and you could even smell a cold, calculating stare assessing your worth. To all of this, you remained completely unfazed. Your world was simple. Those who stand in my way shall face ruin. Those who annoy me shall be ignored.
These people were nothing more than passing scenery on your journey to the peak.
The first round of the tournament soon came to an end.
A soul-shattered Jiaoyan was helped down from the stage.
Thutter constantly. My sword heart. It's cracked. Meanwhile, the name of the rogue cultivator, along with his bizarre technique of disabling spiritual energy with a single swept through the entire martial arena like a storm. Up on the high platform, the atmosphere grew even more tense.
Chu Chenchen's face was as pale as death.
He struggled to maintain his composure, though his voice trembled. Sect leader, this boy's origins are unknown, and his techniques are highly bizarre. He is using Chu Fan's name, and is likely a spy sent by the demonic sects to disrupt the grand tournament. I beg the sect leader to order his immediate arrest.
Master Shanfeng didn't even look at him.
His gaze remained fixed, casting a calm look onto the arena as he spoke. Whether he is a spy
Will be decided by the sect's laws.
but as for whether he is truly Chu Fan, Master Chu, I believe you know the answer far better than I do. Those words made Chu Tensheng feel as if he had plunged into an icy abyss.
Master Shanfeng slowly turned his head.
For the first time, a trace of coldness flickered in those eyes that had seen through the world. The seeds sown 3 years ago have finally borne fruit today. He's back. This is his right. And it's the opportunity the New Ancient Sect owes him. The tournament must go on. Chu Tensheng opened his mouth, but couldn't squeeze out a single word. The sect master knew. He knew all along. Right then, the sect's great elder slowly opened his eyes. His ancient voice echoed across the high platform. The rules cannot be broken. The tournament must continue, and Hingyan must continue as well.
Pass down my command. Have the Hall of Law Enforcement investigate this boy's identity.
Is he the Chu Wen registered in our sect's archives? Or is he another Chu fan? We must give the entire sect an explanation. On the glowing projection screen, the names began to scroll once again. The second round of the draw has begun, and at that very moment, all eyes were locked on another arena. Arena number 1. Zhu Hao, the holy son of the Huanshan sect, versus Li Yunfei, an intersect disciple. A brilliant golden figure soared into the sky like a blazing sun descending and landed squarely on arena number 1. It was indeed Zhu Hao.
His grand entrance instantly set the entire crowd on fire.
His opponent, Li Yufei, was also one of the intersect's finest. But facing the crushing pressure of Zhu Hao's peak golden core realm power, he didn't even have the courage to draw his sword. Junior brother, after you, Zhu Hao said, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked absolutely effortless and elegant. The match begins. Zhu Hao didn't even use his spiritual energy, simply forming a sword with his fingers. A wave of golden sword energy erupted, weaving an inescapable net. In less than 10 exchanges,
Li Yunfei was struck in the shoulder by a gust of sword energy.
his spiritual energy shattered,
And he was blown straight out of the bounds.
All hail the Holy Sun!
Fifth, senior brother's power is unmatched. The thunderous cheers shook the very heavens.
属好思境的先锤的一命。
Basking in the adoration of thousands, he gave a slight nod, his gaze habitually sweeping across the arena. Finally, his eyes landed on the viewing platform, right where Bayern Palace was seated. He wanted to see if Yu Qingying, as cold and ethereal as a goddess, was watching him in celebration of his victory. But he was disappointed.
Yu Qingying's gaze wasn't on him at all. Her eyes were fixed on an obscure corner of the preparation area on the far side of the plaza, where the rogue cultivators gathered.
Xu Hao's brow furrowed, so slightly that it was barely noticeable. A wave of inexplicable displeasure welled up in his chest. Here in the Yuanshan sect, here in the Eastern Wilderness, this is the most important. Who among the younger generation could possibly outshine him? Xu Hao. Following Yu Kenying's gaze, he looked toward the shadow of a stone pillar. There, leaning quietly in the darkness, was a figure in a hemp robe, wearing a wide-brimmed bamboo hat. He stood as still as a statue, unchanged for 10,000 years. Xu Hao didn't recognize him. A sudden, nameless anger flared deep inside him. A nobody rogue cultivator who couldn't even show his face.
What right did he have? As the Holy Sun,
He disdained to walk over and speak to a mere rogue cultivator.
That would be beneath his dignity. Standing on the arena stage, he quietly channeled his inner energy, focusing his spiritual power to condense his voice into a fine, razor-sharp thread. He sent the sound directly and precisely into your ears, completely unnoticed by anyone else. Kid, junior sister Yue is like the radiant moon. A mere firefly like you has no right to even look up at her. Xu Hao's voice carried an innate sense of superiority. Calm, yet chillingly cold. The waters of the Yuanhaitian sect run deep.
They are not for an outcast like you to muddy.
Know your place, finish your match, and get out of here. If you do, I can pretend none of this ever happened. To his own ears, this speech sounded full of the magnanimity and grace of a true superior.
For a rogue cultivator to receive guidance and warning directly from the Holy Sun himself was a supreme honor. Yet, in the shadow of the stone pillar,
You simply leaned there, never looking up, never turning around. You didn't even budge your hands, which remained tucked inside your sleeves. That voice transmission, which would have shattered the composure of any ordinary outer disciple,
was nothing more than a passing breeze.
No, it was less than a breeze. It was as if it didn't even exist. It was a complete, absolute dismissiveness, as if you were looking past him from an entirely different. The muscles in Xu Hao's face twitched imperceptibly. This utter disregard felt far worse than if the guy had jumped up and cursed him to his face. It felt like throwing a full-strength punch only to hit thin air. There was absolutely no resistance, leaving him with nothing but a suffocating sense of frustration and emptiness. And knowing for a fact that Yu Chenying was watching that very spot made the humiliation 10 times worse. He felt like a total clown, talking to himself. Perfect.
Jia Fao's instantly turned ice cold.
He turned around and walked down from the arena stage, step by step. In his heart, he had already labeled you an ungrateful brat who needed to be put in his place. An interesting little target. After a brief rest, the drawing results for the second round locked onto the glowing screen.
This time, nearly half the crowd's eyes were searching for the exact same name, Shu. This code name had now become synonymous with mystery, creepiness, and danger.
Please, anyone but that guy. Sue. That guy is pure bad luck. Seriously. He destroyed Senior Brother Zhao's weapon with just a single tap of his finger. How are we even supposed to fight that? The advancing disciples all prayed silently in their hearts. After 10 breaths, the glowing screen froze. Arena 5. Wang Lane, an inner disciple of the Dequintian sect, versus the rogue cultivator, Xu. Whoa. A massive stir rippled through the crowd. Everyone's eyes whipped over to the competitor, a tall, thin young man in the crowd.
Wang Lin, the inner disciple.
At the early stage of Foundation establishment, in an instant, his face drained of all color. He stared at the glaring word, Shu, on the glowing screen, feeling a sudden icy chill creep into his hands and feet. Fight against that ruthless monster? Is this some kind of sick joke? He had seen exactly what happened to Zhao Yan with his own eyes.
娇艳，我一本闯住了你。
His bound spiritual weapon was the fiery greatsword, ranked among the best in the outer sect. Yet, with just one finger, a single, effortless tap, a radiant, low-grade spiritual weapon was instantly turned into a worthless piece of scrap metal. Zhao Yan's mental state was completely shattered. When he was carried down, he looked completely brain-dead. Wang Yilen touched the sword hanging at his waist. It was just a standard-issue sword from the sect. It couldn't even be called a low-grade spiritual weapon. How the hell was he supposed to win this? Use his own sword to test the power of that terrifying finger. He wasn't that crazy yet. Competitors for the second round, take the stage. The red-robed elder's voice boomed. Wang Nek shuddered violently, as if struck by a bolt of lightning. His legs felt like they were filled with lead. In another corner, a figure in the shadows stirred, stepping away from the stone pillar. He began to walk forward. Unhurried and calm as ever, you walked toward the fifth arena, watching you approach step by step from afar. The shadow under your bamboo hat looks like an all-consuming abyss to Wang Lin. A sudden chill surges from the soles of his feet straight to his skull. An absolute terror grips his heart. The thought of surrendering flashes in his mind and immediately begins to spiral out of control. But in front of the entire sect and all the visiting VIPs, if he surrenders without a fight, how can he ever show his face again? As he wages this fierce war with himself, cold sweat completely soaking his back, you have already reached the stone steps of the fifth arena. Without pausing, for even a second, you begin to climb up, step by step, staring at your calm, lonely back. Lingen's psychological defenses completely shatter. He grits his teeth with all his might, and mustering every ounce of strength in his body, he screams toward the arena. Referee! In the fifth arena, I surrender. His voice explodes across the noisy square. The entire venue instantly falls dead silent. A contestant who just leaped onto the stage, the referee who is just preparing to signal the start, the tens of thousands of disciples watching below, and even the elders from various sects up on the high platform. Every single eye is fixed on Wang Lin, who hasn't even stepped onto the arena yet, and on you, whose foot has just landed on the third stone step. Surrendered without a fight, you halt your steps on the stone stairs and slowly turn your head. Beneath your bamboo hat, your gaze cuts across dozens of yards, landing right on the pale, trembling inner disciple. The moment Wang Ling meets your eyes, he feels as if you've stripped away all his defenses, exposing every ounce of his fear and agony. Shaken, he hangs his head in utter humiliation, not daring to look at you ever again. The referee stands frozen for 3 long seconds before finally snapping out of it. He glances at your expressionless face, and then at Wang Ling, who is hanging his head in deep shame. Taking a deep breath, he announces at the top of his lungs, on the fifth arena, Wang Lin, inner disciple of the Yosin sect, surrenders. The rogue cultivator advances to the next round. A suffocating silence hangs over the crowd. But after 10 agonizing seconds of silence, a deafening uproar erupts, piercing the clouds and flooding the entire martial arts arena like a broken dam. He surrendered? He gave up without even fighting?
Is senior brother Wang Lin out of his mind?
This is the second round.
How could he just throw it away like that?
Throw it away? Did you already forget what happened to Zhouan? Senior brother Wang's sword isn't even a low-grade spiritual weapon. Going up there is just delivering himself on a silver platter. Saving his life-bound treasure in cultivation is the only smart move. The whispers and chatter rose and fell in waves across the crowd. But this time, the voices were no longer filled with mere shock. Instead, there was a palpable sense of dread. If your first match, where you drained your opponent's spiritual energy, had left everyone shocked by your bizarre, unknown methods, then this second match, where Wang Ming surrendered without a fight, elevated that shock into a deep, chilling fear of the very name. Shu. You didn't even have to lift a finger. Simply standing there was enough to make a Foundation Establishment inner disciple throw away his dignity under the gaze of tens of thousands and choose to back down. On the stone steps of the arena, you didn't pause for a single second. Since your opponent had already conceded, you simply turned around and walked back down the way you came, from beginning to end. Your movements and your aura remained completely unchanged. You came like a phantom, utterly detached from this world, and then you left, leaving nothing but a growing dark shadow in everyone's hearts. Arena 5. Rogue Cultivator, Stu, advances. The officiating deacon's voice was dry and strained. He had been a referee for the Grand Tournament for 30 years and had never witnessed such an absurd scene. Up on the high platform, someone murmured, "Interesting." Elder Wen of Beyond Palace squinted, a golden glint flashing in his eyes. Defeating the enemy without staining one's blade and breaking their will first. This is a masterclass. This is no longer within the realm of mere spells or techniques. This is an invisible force, born from absolute strength and sheer mystery. An intangible, overwhelming presence. Lu Tingyi remained silent. Her cold, clear eyes reflected his figure in coarse hemp robes, watching him walk all the way back to his corner. Where others saw momentum and presence, she could faintly sense something else. The exact moment Wang Lin shouted his surrender, the faint, lingering aura of absolute destruction that hovered around the figure quietly receded like the tide. It wasn't a bluff. If Wang Ning had actually stepped onto that stage, his fate wouldn't have been any better than Zhao Yan's.
数千箱是非主内，斗底，地看。
The armrests, crafted from 100-year-old ironwood, were crushed so hard they left deep, clear finger marks. This again. It was another baffling scene that he couldn't comprehend at all. He whipped his head around, glaring at the law enforcement hall elder beside him. His eyes were dark and menacing. Well, what did you find? Sweat poured down the elder's forehead. He whispered back, "My lord, there's no record of any rogue cultivator named Su in our sect's archives. It's like this trash just materialized out of thin air." King summed loud, keeping his voice low but deadly. His chest heaved violently. Amidst the eerie silence, the tournament moved to the third and fourth rounds. Every flicker of the projection screen kept the advancing disciples on the edge of their seats. Whoever drew his name looked utterly hopeless, as pale as ghosts. Finally, during the match to decide the top 8, another challenger stepped up, determined to break the curse. Arena 8. Chen Jing, inner disciple of the Puntan sect, versus rogue cultivator, Su. Chen Jing was a top-tier fighter, ranked in the top 30 of the inner sect. He was at the very peak of the Foundation Establishment stage, famous for his brutal, devastating mountain-crushing palm. "I don't believe in cheap tricks," he barked, leaping onto the arena under the worried gazes of his peers. The path of cultivation is built on solid, hard work. Whatever you're doing is nothing but dirty, mind-bending tricks. He glared at you as you calmly walked toward him, learning from the mistakes of the previous 2 opponents. He decided not to rely on any spiritual energy. Instead, He would use his battle-hardened body and 10 years of raw, concentrated, true essence to crush your illusions. Match, begin! With a thunderous roar, Chen Jing
The bluest stone beneath his feet shattered instantly. His palms glowed with a heavy, golden-brown aura, and he charged at you like a savage tiger pouncing from a mountain.
10 steps. 9 steps. 8 steps.
But the very instant he crossed into a 3-foot radius around you, everything changed. The savage snarl on Chen Jing's face froze solid. His true essence, which had been rushing through his veins like a roaring river, suddenly felt like a blazing bonfire that was instantly starved of all oxygen.
The power in his meridians turned sluggish, thick, and completely unresponsive.
The golden-brown glow on his palms could easily shatter solid stone, began to flicker and fade right before his eyes.
And then, like a candle in a sudden gust of wind, it snuffed out completely.
His outstretched hand struck forward, completely lifeless and powerless.
What's happening? His mind went completely blank.
Refusing to believe it, he desperately forced his Dantian to squeeze out more power, trying to kickstart his true essence once more. But the second it entered his meridians, it died instantly, sinking back into that suffocating frozen state.
It was like throwing stones into a bottomless ocean.
Once, twice, 3 times. Every attempt was nothing but a useless, exhausting struggle.
Within just a dozen breaths, Chen Jing was completely drenched in a cold sweat.
Trembling, he looked at you, standing right in front of him, having not moved a single inch. The determination and confidence in his eyes are being devoured, inch, by a suffocating despair. A sheer sense of powerlessness. He couldn't understand it. His opponent hadn't made a move, hadn't even come close. There wasn't even the slightest pulse of spiritual energy.
But why? Why did his own strength just vanish?
Thud! Under the dead, silent gaze of tens of thousands of spectators, Chen Jin's legs gave out, and he collapsed, kneeling powerless. He gasped heavily for air, as if he had just survived a brutal, life-or-death battle.
Yet, he knew the painful truth. He hadn't even managed to touch the corner of your clothes.
His defeat made absolutely no sense. It was utterly mind-boggling. He lost so badly that his very core, his entire resolve, was completely shattered. Up on the high platform, the elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion stared on, his lips trembling. He could no longer comprehend what he was seeing.
This isn't a seal.
Nor is it a restriction. This is an absolute annihilation on the level of cosmic laws. Elder Wen of the Baiyan Palace spoke, his voice trembling. He remembered the words his sex-holy maiden had once used. In his presence, any structured, orderly spiritual energy is forcibly reverted to its most primal, chaotic state. Spells are nothing but the orderly flow of spiritual energy, and qi is its structured transmission. So in front of him, every single cultivation method we have ever known becomes completely useless. As Elder Wen uttered this conclusion, even he felt his scalp go completely numb with dread. If that is truly the case,
Then what does this man's existence mean for the entire cultivation world?
he's an anomaly, a living glitch walking the earth, capable of overturning the very foundation of our cultivation civilization. Chao's face had already darkened, looking as grim as a gathering storm. He stared deathly at your figure, shifting from his initial contempt to intense irritation. And now, to a creeping dread that he was utterly unwilling to admit. The glorious halo of the Holy Sun he was so proud of, his peak core formation cultivation, and his invincible golden sword qi. Would any of it still work against such a bizarre, terrifying power? For the very first time in his life, he began to doubt himself. And as for Chu Tianxiong, the moment he saw Chen Jin fall to his knees, it felt as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. A memory, sealed away for 3 long years, suddenly ripped through the fog of his mind like a flash of lightning and exploded with a deafening roar. 3 years ago, on the edge of the Valley of 10,000 Corpses, he had struck you with a devastating blow, shattering your dantia. He had ruptured every single meridian in your body. He remembered it with absolute clarity. Right before your life force completely faded away, a similar brief moment of dead silence had appeared around your body. At the time, he had assumed it was merely the final desperate spark of a dying man's life. But looking back now, that was never the end. It was only the beginning. An impossible resurrection, a power he cannot comprehend. It's him. It has to be him. He's not dead. He's really back.
去禅相棋，擦得安坑稠了没？
A chilling shudder shoots up his spine, straight to his head. He isn't afraid of a mere foundation establishment junior. No. He is terrified of a power he can neither comprehend nor control, a force he cannot even hope to fight. The referee of ring number 8 gulps, struggling to announce the result. Advancing to the top 8. Once again, completely unscathed. This time, the entire arena falls dead silent. Not even a whisper can be heard. There is only a suffocating silence, and tens of thousands of eyes staring at you as if they are looking at a god or a demon. Calmly, you step down from the stage, returning to your quiet corner. It's as if winning 4 consecutive matches and cruising into the top 8 was nothing more than pausing for a quick sip of water. The roaring crowd outside, their terror, their awe, and their petty schemes, none of it matters to you. In your world, there is only one goal: to climb to the absolute top, step by step,
and take back everything that belongs to you.
Right then, high up on the viewing platform, Chu Tansheng leaps to his feet. He can no longer maintain his composure. He strides over to a black-robed enforcer, meeting in close, his bloodshot eyes burning with madness and desperation. "Deliver my secret order," he whispers, his voice freezing cold, like ice. "Use every resource we have. Investigate. Find out everything about this rogue cultivator named Zhou. I don't care where he came from, or who his master is. Before the next round begins, I want his entire life history on my desk. Every single detail since the day he was born. Dig 3 feet into the earth if you must, but drag him out." An hour later, inside Chu Chanchong's private study, he grabs a fine white jade teacup and smashes it violently against the floor. Useless. You're all useless. Completely losing his cool. He cannot hide his panic any longer, pacing back and forth frantically across the room. A living, breathing human being. And you're telling me you can't find a damn thing? In the center of the room, several core intelligence officers of the Chu family stand with bowed heads, too terrified to even breathe.
"My lord, it's as if this man appeared in Yuetin City out of thin air."
The words "out of thin air" made Chu Chengshon's eyelid twitch violently. If you can't find anything, then stop digging. He turned around slowly, taking his seat at the head of the table once more. His voice regained its usual cold stability. Since he is a guest, let him finish this tournament in peace. His trusted confidants froze, but Chu Tianshang's next words chilled them to the bone. "When you clean up the martial arena after the grand tournament, I don't want to see any useless trash left behind. Do you understand?" Understood. A silent, suffocating killing intent filled the secret chamber. "No matter who you are, if you stand in my way, you must disappear." In the shadows of the corner, you still kept your eyes closed. Yet, in your sensory world where black and white cyclones swirled, the threat of the purest, coldest, and most intense killing intent, like a poisoned steel needle, pieced right into your range of perception. Its source was Chu Chenheng, high up on the grand platform. Your eyelashes didn't even twitch. Beneath the bamboo hat, on that forever expressionless face, the corner of your mouth curled up into an almost imperceptible smirk. Can't hold back anymore, can you? This was good, because you, too, were getting a little impatient. Right at that moment, the final match of the quarterfinals on the martial arena came to an end. The giant light screen flashed once more. The quarterfinal victors advancing: Chu Hao, holy son of the Yutuanshan sect,
姓姬，限子和北用牌了。
and Lin Feng, chief of the Yuanshan sect's inner court. When these 3 names appeared, expected cheers erupted from the entire crowd. But the moment the 4th name surfaced, all noise came to a screeching halt. Rogue cultivator, you. That lonely word, rogue, seemed to hold a strange magic, plunging the bustling plaza into a bizarre, dead silence. The red-robed builder took a deep breath and announced in a booming voice, "We will now draw the matchups for the semifinals." Everyone's heart leapt into their throats. Chao's gaze swept over the crowd, landing coldly right on your corner. He shot another subtle glance toward Biwen Palace. He was hoping to draw your name. He wanted to crush a coward like you, who hides in the shadows, right in front of Yue Qingying. Meanwhile, Lin Unique nervously clutched her senior sister's sleeve, whispering prayers that her benefactor wouldn't have to face that monster. Up on the light screen, the 4 names began to spin and shuffle at lightning speed before finally coming to a slow halt. 2 lines of flashing golden characters appeared before the eyes of tens of thousands of spectators. Arena 1. Chu Hao of the Yuanshan sect versus Ling Feng of the Yuanshan sect. The crowd erupted in an uproar. The Holy Sun was going head-to-head with the inner sect's chief disciple. This was bound to be an absolute clash of titans, a battle for the ages. Yet, everyone's eyes remained glued to the second line of text, as if they could pierce right through the screen. In that case, Xu's only remaining opponent was... The crowd didn't have to wait long. The second line of matches clearly materialized on the screen. Arena 2. Rogue Cultivator Xu versus Biwen Palaces. Qingying. Up on the light screen, those 2 matchups exploded like twin claps of thunder over the martial arts arena. Arena 1-2. Chu Hao of the Wutinian sect versus Lin Feng of the Wutinian sect. After a brief moment of silence, the expected cheers erupted. The Holy Sun facing the inner sect's chief disciple. This was a matchup worthy of the finals. Yet, here it was, happening early in the semifinals. Ling Feng was the undisputed #1 disciple of the inner sect, at the peak of foundation establishment, just a hair's breadth away from core formation. Yet, as he stood opposite Chu Hao, the confidence that usually defined the inner sect's chief disciple seemed to dim. A golden light shimmered around Chu Hao as he pushed the power of his saint bones to its absolute limit. "Brother Lin, after you," Chu Hao said, nodding. His posture remained elegant as ever. "Let the match begin." Without any probing, Ling Feng immediately unleashed his ultimate trump card, the immovable Mountain King Fist. A massive, earthy yellow fist shadow surged forward with the force of an entire army, blasting straight toward Chu Hao, facing an attack that would make even an ordinary, early-stage core formation cultivator pale in horror. Chu Hao didn't even budge. He simply extended his right hand, pressed his fingers together like a sword, and lightly tapped forward. Golden light burst from his fingertips, condensing into a compact golden sword shadow.
The sword shadow met the fist shadow.
But there was no deafening collision.
Instead, everyone watched in disbelief as that mountain-like fist shadow.
The moment it made contact with that sharp golden tip, it split silently, right down the middle, like butter sliced by a hot knife,
crumbling and dissolving inch by inch. A single finger shattering all spells.
Ling Feng's pupils shrunk in pure shock. He scrambled backward in a desperate retreat. But Chu Hao was even faster. With one step, he moved like a flash of golden lightning, bridging the entire distance in an instant to appear right in front of Ling Feng.
Too slow. A cold, indifferent voice whispered right in Ling Feng's ear.
A second finger pressed hard against Ling Feng's protective barrier.
Crack! A crisp, shattering sound echoed through the entire arena. Ling Feng's protective barrier, strong enough to withstand a full-strength strike from a low-grade spiritual weapon, shattered. Instantly, like a fragile eggshell, the residual shockwave of the golden sword energy swept out, blasting him off his feet and sending him flying. He slammed heavily onto the very edge of the arena. He had lost. From start to finish, it took less than 10 breaths of time. Within 10 moves, the top disciple of the inner sect was utterly crushed. A dead silence fell over the crowd, followed instantly by a mountain-shaking, tsunami-like wave of fanatical cheers that drowned out everything.
All hail the Holy Sun.
Invictus is immortal.
Batelti, he's too strong. Is this the Holy Sun's true power?
Charles stood in the center of the arena, slowly lowering his finger. The golden glow around him began to fade, but his absolute ruler of the world aura reached its absolute peak. He didn't leave the stage right away. Instead, he turned around, his gaze piercing through the roaring crowd like a perfectly aimed spear, locking straight onto a dark corner of the plaza, straight at your figure, which hadn't budged an inch since the very beginning. Deafening noise of the martial art arena seemed to fade into mere background music for him. He raised his hand and pointed directly at you from afar, his voice infused with powerful spiritual energy, echoed clearly into every single corner. Rogue cultivator, your luck ends here. In the finals, I will be waiting for you. His voice was dripping with undeniable arrogance and absolute confidence. I will make you, and everyone else, realize that a tiny firefly can never compete with the brilliant moon. Your so-called mystery
is nothing but a pathetic joke in the face of absolute power.
As his words fell, the disciples supporting Chu Hao erupted into even more fanatical screams. But deep within the shadows of that corner,
You still lean against the stone pillar, completely motionless.
it's as if Chu Hao's grand, booming declaration means absolutely nothing to you. Just a passing breeze. This utter, absolute disregard
Causes the golden light in Chu Hao's eyes to turn a fraction colder. High up on the grandstand,
Ye Qing's delicate brow furrows almost imperceptibly. Beside her, Elder Wen of Buyuan Palace looks deeply worried.
Kriying, you're up in the next match. That cultivator's methods, they are far too bizarre.
Yu Tingying shakes her head gently.
Cutting the elder off, her cold gaze sweeps past the triumphant Chu Hao before settling back onto the corner where you stand.
She says softly,
Elder Wen.
he is our benefactor.
Those few words make Elder Wen choke back the rest of his sentence. He falls silent for a moment, pondering. Finally, he nods. I understand. A mere empty title is indeed nothing compared to a good relationship, especially a connection with someone of his caliber.
Soon the red-robed elder announces loudly. The second match of the semifinals.
Zhu against the scientists of Buyuan Palace. Ye Qingyan.
The entire arena erupts in excitement once again. Everyone wants to see what will happen when a legendary prodigy like Ye Qingyin goes head-to-head with a bizarre anomaly like you. What kind of showdown will it turn out to be?
Under the watchful eyes of thousands, you step out from your corner.
Still maintaining your calm and steady pace, you walk step by step toward the second arena. On the other side, Yu Qingyin also makes her move. Her white robes are whiter than snow. Her movements ethereal, like a goddess from the Moon Palace descending into the mortal realm. She lands gracefully on the stage. The two of you stand facing each other. One is shrouded in the shadow of a bamboo hat, exuding a deathly silence. The other is bathed in the spotlight of the crowd, cold and pure as the moonlight. The referee takes a deep breath, just about to announce the start of the match. Right at that moment, Yu Qingyu moves. She doesn't form any hand seals, nor does she summon any magical treasures. She simply nods slightly in your direction, and her clear, cold voice echoes through the amplification array for everyone to hear. I am no match for you. I choose to admit my defeat. 6 simple words. Yet they carried far more explosive power than when Chu Hao defeated Ling Feng with his real moves.
Buzz! In that instant, every single brain in the entire martial arts arena completely froze, surrendering. The saintess of Buyuan Palace, one of the top prodigies of the East,
The one whom countless people believed was the only one qualified to fight Chu Hao for the championship. Yu Qingyin had surrendered without even fighting. Up on the smile on Chu Hao's face froze instantly. The victory he was so incredibly proud of, and his arrogant, self-satisfied declaration. Before Yu Tingying's casual 6 words, it all felt like a massive, pathetic joke.
he could have accepted Yu Qingyin losing to you, even if it were a crushing defeat.
But he couldn't accept that she would choose to give up without even lifting a single finger.
What did this mean?
It meant that in her heart, this mysterious rogue cultivator, who kept his face hidden, was already so powerful that she didn't even have the courage to fight him. And yet, here he was, Chu Hao, still arrogantly boasting about crushing you.
An unspeakable wave of humiliation boiled that scalding lava inside Chu Hao's chest.
After a moment of absolute dead silence across the venue, the entire crowd erupted into an uproar, far more explosive than ever before.
Crazy. This world has gone crazy. Fairy has actually surrendered too?
Who on earth is this Yuz?
He conquered her mind without even fighting.
This isn't just martial arts anymore.
This is the work of gods and demons. Amidst the deafening clamor of the crowd, Yu Qing turned and walked off the arena stage. At the exact moment she brushed past you, her footsteps paused slightly. A voice transmission, as faint as a whisper, was delivered precisely into your ears.
Benefactor, watch out for Chu Hao. There is something bizarre about his holy bone. Your footsteps didn't falter for a single second.
As if you hadn't heard a thing, you turned around, and under the dumbfounded gaze of the referee, you walked off the stage, step by step, returning to that quiet corner that belonged to you, an effortless victory.
You had advanced to the finals. After a brief recess,
the sectmaster appeared in person. His booming voice instantly silenced all the chatter. The grand finale of the Yunishin Sect tournament, when Yushin Sect's holy son, Chu Hao, versus the rogue cultivator, Suz. As the sectmaster's voice faded, Chu Hao's figure transformed into a brilliant streak of golden light, descending sharply onto the massive white jade stage in the very center of the arena. Specially prepared for the finals, his golden robes fluttered violently, his long hair whipped through the air, and his holy bone pulsed with a blinding light. Shrouded in brilliant light, he stood there like a blazing sun suspended in midair, radiating a blinding splendor. He was so dazzling that no one dared to look him in the eye. Yet, amidst that wave of fanatical cheers, a figure in the far corner of the square finally stirred. Stepping out from the shadow of the stone pillar, you finally walked into everyone's line of sight. There was no overwhelming aura, no grand flashy entrance. You simply walked forward, step by steady, unwavering step. It was as if you weren't heading into a final battle to decide the absolute champion of the Eastern Wilderness's younger generation, but were merely taking a casual stroll back home. Cutting through the crowd, you stepped onto the white jade straight and came to a stop 30 yards, right in front of Chu Hao. In that very instant, the roaring crowd fell into an eerie, dead silence. Tens of thousands of eyes locked onto the two of you. One was a radiant, dazzling genius, put on a pedestal by his sect and family as the Golden Boy, and the other was as silent as an abyss, a vengeful ghost who had crawled his way back to the living world from the very depths of hell. This fateful, destined showdown had finally arrived. Amidst the breathless, suffocating silence,
Chu Hao glared at you, his voice dripping with icy contempt. You shameless coward, hiding in the shadows.
You have nowhere left to run. Let's see what pathetic face you're hiding under that hat. If in an answer to his challenge, under Chu Hao's icy stare, under Chu Qingsheng's suddenly narrowing eyes, and under your Tingying's intense, unblinking gaze, you slowly raised your hands. Your fingers gripped the edge of your wide bamboo hat,
And with a gentle lift, you took it off, revealing a pale, refined, yet devastatingly familiar face to the entire crowd. Now, let the real show begin.
Come on, let's see, without me, how much power your precious relic actually has left. Your voice wasn't loud, but it fell like a massive boulder into a dead, silent lake. It didn't just cause ripples. It stirred up a towering, monstrous wave. You spoke those words to Chu Hao. At every single syllable landed like a brutal, invisible slap across Chu Tansheng's face. Slap on the grandstand. Ironwood armrest under Chu Tansheng's grip had already disintegrated into fine powder. He glared down at you, and for the very first time, the calculated composure in his eyes completely vanished. In its place was a dark, raging storm of a man driven into a corner. He couldn't let this fight go on. Absolutely not! Utter nonsense, he roared. Like a sudden clap of thunder, Chu Tansheng leaps to his feet from the high platform. The overwhelming pressure of a late-stage Golden Core master crashes down on you like a roaring tsunami. His hair and beard bristle with raw fury, his face twisted with rage. Pointing at the tens of thousands of disciples and guests, he roars, "Do not be fooled by this impostor!" 3 years ago, Chu Fan grew jealous, stole our sect's sacred techniques, and fell into the dark path. I personally executed him myself to cleanse our sect. This is a fact known to everyone in the Yuwishan sect. The person standing before you is nothing but a dark cultivator from the Corpse Valley, who stole Ju Fan's face. He mastered forbidden, wicked arts, solely to disrupt Lord Wuzong's assembly, and destroy the 100-year reputation of our Gutian sect. His words ring out with righteous fury, echoing through the air. With a few sentences, he brands you as a vile, dark cultivator, pinning you to a pillar of shame. His booming voice, paired with an oppressive aura that almost freezes the air, instantly shakes the crowd. The disciples start whispering, "Wait, he's right." The sect announcement did say the former saint turned traitor. Could this guy really be an imposter? Yet, standing right at the center of this crushing pressure, you remain completely calm. An aura that would crush a normal cultivator's soul feels like nothing more than a gentle breeze to you. Even the hem of your simple robes doesn't flutter a single inch. Slowly, you look up,
Gazing at the frantic, desperate figure on the high stage.
a smirk plays on your lips.
You let out a soft laugh.
It is quiet. Yet it cuts clearly through the heavy, suffocating aura.
And echoes in everyone's ears. The altar Chu Chensheng, you say, addressing him directly.
You're awfully quick to brand me a criminal.
Are you trying to silence me with your aura?
Because you have a guilty conscience?
Or is it that you don't even believe the lie you manufactured yourself? Is that why you have to force everyone else to believe it?
You pause, then your voice suddenly rises, commanding the entire arena.
But let's take a step back. Even if I were a dark cultivator, let me ask everyone here. What kind of villain would go to this much trouble?
Without stealing wealth or taking lives. I fought my way up, round by round, through the qualifiers.
Just to slander a saint I supposedly don't even know during the finals?
Does that make any sense to you?
Logic is always the sharpest weapon.
Your words cut like razor-sharp blades, creasing right through the weakest link in Chu Tangshang's argument.
That's right. It doesn't make any sense. The disciples, who had been paralyzed by the sheer pressure, suddenly snapped back to reality. The looks they cast toward the high platform turned heavy with suspicion.
Shut up! Chu Hao, standing on the arena, finally recovered from the shock of you claiming the holy bone is yours.
He points a trembling finger at you.
And shouts, backing up the third elder, Chu Tengxiong. My brother Chu Fan, I know him better than anyone. He is kind-hearted, even weak.
There is no way he could possess such cold, sinister, and bizarre methods like yours. Watching this uncle and nephew play their little game of good cop, bad cop, the last trace of pity in your eyes completely vanishes.
It is replaced by a bone-chilling, icy stare.
Weak-minded, you softly mutter the words,
shaking your head.
It seems 3 years haven't taught you a single thing.
Your vision is still so pitifully narrow.
Arguing any further is completely pointless. You turn your back on them, facing the highest authority on the high platform once again. The sect master of the Yuanshan sect, who has remained completely silent until now.
Sect master, your voice is now perfectly calm.
I do not ask the sect to seek justice for the injustice I suffered 3 years ago.
I only ask that the sect give me a fair chance.
This battle is not just a final match. It is a battle to prove who is real and who is the fraud.
I beg the sect master to permit this fight.
With these words, you throw the hot potato right back into the hands of the sect's leadership.
The sect master's face
twitches violently. He knows that no matter what he decides today, the Yuanshan sect has already lost all of its dignity. It is a choice between 2 poisons. He can only choose the less fatal one. Granted. That single word is forced out of the sect master's mouth with agonizing effort.
Chu Taoxuan's body visibly sways at the sound of it.
It is over. You have achieved your goal.
You have obtained the sanction of the rules. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of spectators, you are going to reclaim everything that belongs to you in the most honorable battle possible.
Thank you, sect master. You straighten up and turn back, locking your eyes on the pale
and utterly panicked Chu Hao.
Now, it's just you and me.
Since none of you seem to recognize this face,
your gaze drops to Chu Hao's chest, right where the stolen holy bone is glowing with divine light.
Then I'll let it do the talking for me. The moment the words leave your lips, to close your eyes,
the black and white cyclone swirling inside your body, the primordial power of the 9 Revolutions Reincarnation Sutra,
begins to spin furiously at an unprecedented speed. With a deep hum, an incredibly mystical, arcane energy
that doesn't seem to belong to this world.
A strange ripple transcending the very boundary of life and death
silently spreads outward with your body at the center. It feels like a calling, a summons from the depths of the soul.
The oldest, most absolute command, originating from the very source of your bloodline. High up on the arena stage,
Chu Hao is just about to speak, but his expression suddenly freezes. He looks down,
staring at his chest in absolute horror.
The sacred bone that has been fused with him day and night for 3 long years now seems to have suddenly come alive. It is trembling, like a long-lost child suddenly hearing its mother's voice. Or even more, like a usurper forcibly dragged onto a stolen throne,
who suddenly hears the battle horn announcing the return of the true king.
Chu Hao lets out a painful, agonized groan. He can feel a searing heat, completely out of his control, surging wildly from the sacred bone.
It burns through his meridians
and tears through his internal organs. That bone
is resisting. It's rejecting him. What is happening? Damn it, submit to me. Calm down. Chu Hao's face is deathly pale.
He desperately forces his own spiritual energy to suppress the violent rebellion of the sacred bone. But it's utterly useless. The very sacred bone he was so proud of, the one that brought him supreme glory for 3 whole years, has now become his most terrifying nightmare. 30 yards away, on the other side of the stage, you slowly open your eyes. There isn't a shred of emotion in your obsidian eyes,
only absolute, unquestionable dominance.
You look down at Chu Hao, who is now forced to his knees in agonizing pain.
We watch the golden light inside his chest, flashing uncontrollably and violently. Calmly, you extend your right hand, opening your fingers as you aim them directly to Chu Hao from afar. Then, in a cold, indifferent tone, as if simply stating an undeniable fact,
You utter words that make the entire world fall dead silent. Do you believe me now? Something that was never yours is nothing but a lie, even if you hold it in your hands.
And now, it's time for it to come home.
As the final word leaves your lips,
You clench your fist. You puts first today, ma flea.
A strange, resonant hum, as if echoing from the primordial dawn of time, vibrates deep within everyone's soul.
Instantly, the blinding golden light bursting from Chu Hao's chest violently contracts.
Then, a blindingly brilliant beam of golden light tore right through his flesh and robes, soaring straight into the sky.
30 feet above the arena, the beam suddenly erupted outward, transforming into a massive crystal-clear screen of golden light.
Shadows and light rippled across the screen.
And slowly, a hazy image began to piece itself together. It was a dark, suffocating chamber. At its center stood an ancient altar, carved with countless eerie, twisting runes.
Bound to the altar, a frail young boy was chained down tightly by thick, heavy iron links. And standing below the altar were two figures.
One was a smug, arrogant youth,
his eyes gleaming with raw greed and excitement. The other stood with his hands behind his back, a cold, emotionless, middle-aged man. As the projection finally froze, casting those three faces clearly before the eyes of tens of thousands of spectators, the entire arena fell dead silent. The boy bound to that altar was none other than you 3 years ago, and the ecstatic youth standing below was Chu Hao, 3 years younger than he is today.
As for the cold, merciless man who orchestrated the entire thing,
Every single gaze whipped around, landing squarely on the high platform, right on Chu Tangxiong, the grand elder of the Chu family, who had frozen completely stiff, like a stone statue. Within the glowing screen,
The scene began to play, and a voice rang out. It was Chu Tangxiong, sounding cold and utterly devoid of humanity.
Fan, don't blame me for being cruel.
you were born with the sacred bone, but you are far too soft-hearted. You will never achieve greatness.
In your hands, this sacred bone is nothing but a pearl buried in the dust. Though Hauer's natural talent might not match yours,
He has the ambition and the ruthlessness you lack.
only by inheriting the sacred bone
Can he lead our Chu family to true, absolute glory? Today, I will perform the ritual of grafting and rip the sacred bone from your chest to graft it onto Hauer. This is your destiny, and the destiny of our Chu family. As those words echoed,
the projected Chu Tangxiong curled his fingers into a claw.
and without a shred of hesitation, plunged his hand straight into your bloody, mangled chest.
The truth was finally laid bare before the entire world.
That wasn't just some illusion. It was a memory that had been buried deep for 3 long years.
It was the raw, unalterable proof of the sacred bow's true origin, recorded by the bone itself. Time itself seemed to be completely severed at this very moment by that soaring golden pillar of light. In that single instant, the breath of the tens of thousands of spectators in the entire arena was choked off by an invisible hand. That golden pillar of light bursting from Chu Hao's chest was not some wild release of violent energy.
It was dazzling, but not blinding.
Vast,
Yet carrying a deep, mournful wail.
Rising 30 feet above the arena,
The pillar of light unfurled silently, like a slowly opening scroll.
transformed into a massive golden screen of light. Shadows and ripples of light flowed across its surface, looking at first like the moon's reflection in water
or a flower in a mirror, blurry and indistinct.
But soon, a strange, low hum vibrated from deep within the screen, and the image began to rapidly coalesce,
Sharpening into focus.
It was a dim, shadowy secret chamber. The surrounding walls were densely carved with runes that pulsed with an ominous, blood-red glow. In the center of the chamber stood an ancient, cross-shaped altar. Cold, dark iron chains stretched out from its four corners,
Shackling a figure trapped upon the altar.
It was a young boy, looking no more than 16 or 17 years old. He had delicate, handsome features, though a trace of lingering innocence and youth still rested between his brows. He was pinned, spread-eagled, bound tight by those cold iron chains.
Every drop of spiritual energy in his body seemed completely sealed away by the altar's bizarre runes.
That's Chu Fan from 3 years ago. Someone in the crowd let out a sharp, choked gasp. Yes, that was indeed the face everyone remembered before disaster struck him. Back when he was still the most dazzling genius of the Yuanxian sect. But as two other figures emerged at the base of the altar, everyone's heart collectively sank. One was another young boy, his eyes burning with a sickening mix of excitement and jealousy, masked only by a faint, cowardly flinch. He was none other than Chu Hao from 3 years ago, and the other man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his posture tall and imposing, his expression as cold and unyielding as ancient eternal ice. Just standing there, he radiated the presence of the absolute master of this chamber.
Up on the high platform,
出前像一茬巴底，稳空辟了无际。
His pupils shrinking to the size of pinpricks. The middle-aged man on the screen was none other than himself. This was no illusion. This was a raw, unedited memory, forever branded deep within the sacred valley. With a soft hum, the screen of light trembled slightly, and the chilling voice of the man on the screen began to play,
echoing clearly into every single corner of the Yuanxian sect.
It was Chu Diansheng's voice.
completely devoid of any emotion. If he were reading an execution order for a total stranger, Fan.
Do not blame your father for being heartless.
On the screen, Ju Tanshong looked down at the boy on the altar, whose face was deathly pale. Staring in utter disbelief, you watch him slowly speak. You were born with the sacred bone, but you are far too soft-hearted to ever achieve greatness. In your hands, this sacred bone is nothing but a pearl covered in dust, an absolute waste of a divine gift.
Though Howard's talent cannot compare to yours. He possesses the raw ambition and ruthlessness you lack.
Only if he inherits this sacred bone can he truly lead our Ju family to unparalleled glory.
Today, I shall perform the technique of grafting.
To strip this sacred bone from your body and fuse it into Howard. This is your destiny. The destiny of our entire Chu family. Every single word was a dagger straight to the soul.
If there was even a shred of doubt left after the previous accusations, then this memory projection, featuring the perpetrator's own voice and actions,
was a red-hot, heavy iron hammer,
shattering every last lie and facade into pieces.
Up on the high platform.
初见响声的女里路径和腹顶.
All color drained from his face in an instant, leaving behind a deathly, ash-gray pale.
He wanted to roar.
He wanted to defend himself, to scream that this was all just an illusion. But in front of all the powerful sect masters of the Eastern Wasteland, and right before the eyes of the Intuition sect master, he knew that any words of denial in the face of this absolute, undeniable proof were nothing more than a pathetic, futile struggle. And then, the most horrific scene played out on the projection screen. In the memory, Ju Tanshong showed not a single shred of fatherly love. Curving his fingers into a claw, he aimed directly at your chest on the altar from afar. A blinding, brilliantly golden core of light was violently ripped out of your body, inch by agonizing inch, by an invisible force. On the screen, you couldn't even make a sound, but your body convulsed violently in agony. In the depths of excruciating pain and betrayal, those once bright eyes instantly lost all of their light, fading into a hollow, lifeless void. The sheer despair of having your most precious gift violently torn away by your own flesh and blood transcended 3 years of time through the projection, and pierced like a knife straight into the heart of everyone in the crowd. The golden projection suddenly dissolved, as if its grim mission was complete. The entire martial arts arena fell into an even more terrifying, deathly silence. You could have heard a pin drop, until a raspy, desperate roar shattered the quiet.
It was Chu Tanshong.
His hair is wild and disheveled,
Without a single shred of his former dignity as the great elder. He looks utterly mad. It's an illusion! It's some demonic illusion!
pointing at you. He screams frantically at the sect leader.
This man has fallen into the demonic path.
He must not be allowed to live.
Seize him! Hurry, seize him!
Yet, his wild roars meet with absolute silence.
Atop the high platform,
All the elders stand in silence.
Keeping completely still.
They all take a step back, a step to make their stance clear.
A step to sever all ties.
when the wall collapses, it is his former colleagues from all sides who push it down.
And even his own flesh and blood join in.
Atop the platform, Jujasang ultimately bursts into a fit of maniacal laughter, pointing at you below the platform, and then at the cold-faced elders around him.
His face is filled with venomous malice and bitter resentment.
So what if I did it?
He howls, finally tearing away his last shred of disguise. Winner takes all, loser takes the fall. It has always been this way.
I just happened to lose this time.
Everything I did was for the family, for the sect.
His unrepentant rant draws nothing but deeper contempt and mockery from the crowd. At the very center of the storm, you simply stand there, motionless. You watch your once most respected uncle turn into a rabid dog,
And your once closest cousin reduced to a heap of worthless mud.
your eyes are as calm as a deep, still well, showing no emotion.
All you want is an outcome.
A clean, definitive end to all of this.
your lips part slightly.
There is no murderous intent, no hatred, only a calm indifference, as if declaring a fundamental law of the universe.
Your voice echoes across the entire square, and the moment your words fade,
Whimpering, Chuha collapsed limply onto the ground, his body suddenly arched violently.
curling up like a boiled shrimp.
The robe over his chest spontaneously disintegrated into ash, exposing
The once brilliantly golden, yet now dull and crack-ridden Saint Bone.
it was no longer rooted in his flesh.
Instead, it was being pushed out of Chu Hao's body by an invisible force. Gentle, yet utterly commanding,
The Saint Bone hovered quietly right in front of Chu Hao's chest,
Looking like a foreign object that had absolutely nothing to do with his body.
Chahao's eyes stretched wide in horror.
as he felt his power draining away at terrifying speed.
his foundation establishment, great perfection stage, deflated like a punctured balloon, plummeting instantly,
Late foundation establishment, mid foundation establishment, early foundation establishment.
and finally crashing down to the chi refining stage. All the cultivation, glory, and status he had amassed over the past 3 years.
Was stripped away and reclaimed the moment that Bone left his body.
He was reduced back to the nobody he once was. The Saint Bone, suspended in the air,
Gave a gentle shudder and instantly transformed into a streak of light, too fast for the naked eye to follow.
defying the laws of space. With a sharp whoosh, it plunged straight into your chest at the other end of the arena. Instantly, a golden divine light, 100 times more powerful than when Chu Ha summoned it, erupted from within you.
But this golden light
was no longer violent and destructive.
Instead, it was sacred,
serene, and brimming with absolute perfection.
right where your chest was.
A flawless, divine gold-like bone was quietly branded into your body.
It merged seamlessly with your flesh,
Your meridians, and your very soul.
it was as if it had never left. This wasn't just a simple return to its rightful owner.
It was a dragon returning to the great ocean. When you opened your eyes once more,
A faint golden glow shimmered within your deep, dark pupils.
you looked down at Chu Hao, who was now completely unconscious, his breath so weak he seemed like a mere mortal. Then,
You turned around,
Facing Chu Tiansang, who stood frozen on the high platform, his face pale as death.
Finally, your gaze slowly swept over the crowd, taking in the tens of thousands of shocked, terrified, and utterly stunned faces.
you speak calmly, your voice echoing in all directions. The Chu fan of 3 years ago is dead. Pausing for a moment, you say, word by word, the one standing here today
Is a debt collector.
The debt is settled. As your voice fades,
Ignoring the stunned uproar of the crowd, you turn around.
And walk down the arena stage, step by step. You don't utter another useless word without sparing anyone another glance.
All past ties are severed.
There is absolutely nothing left here for you to care about. But just as you were about to step off the stage, a majestic yet complex, aging voice drifts down from the very top of the high platform.
Where are you going? Just 4 simple words.
Yet they make tens of thousands of eyes across the entire arena lock onto you once more.
Pausing in your tracks,
You don't turn around right away.
instead, you stand there quietly for 2 seconds.
The wind whips against your tattered hemp clothes,
Making them rustle loudly. Together with the divine, flowing golden light of the sacred bone on your chest, it creates a strange yet harmonious picture.
You aren't hesitating.
It is as if you are saying your final goodbye to your past self. As you slowly turn around,
Not a single trace of past grievances remains on your handsome face. Looking up at the high platform, your gaze cuts straight across a distance of hundreds of feet, landing on the throne at the very top.
it is completely empty, but the voice definitely came from there.
the debt is settled.
And everything here is finished. You speak calmly.
Your voice soft, yet carrying the resolute ring of striking metal.
Your reply is open yet distant.
I only came to collect a debt. Now that the debt is paid, I should naturally leave.
From this day forth, the Otinison sect has nothing to do with me.
A low murmur ripples through the crowd.
He's really going to leave? On the platform, those elders who were filled with righteous indignation just a moment ago,
Now were incredibly complex expressions on their faces. Some feel regret, some feel guilt.
and some even feel a faint, barely noticeable sense of relief. Over in the seating area of the Yumon Palace,
Jitinier's delicate brows knit together slightly. She doesn't believe it.
how could someone who spent 3 long years crawling back from the abyss,
Is his true purpose really just for that single line?
a debt I owe you? That ancient, raspy voice echoed once more.
Carrying a trace of a mocking smile,
A playful mockery in his tone lingered.
The exact moment those words fell,
A figure appeared without warning, right before the throne on the high platform.
he wore a simple gray dawsed robe.
His hair and beard completely white.
and his face ancient and weathered.
He looked like nothing more than an ordinary dying old man.
But as he stood there, the very light of the heavens and earth seemed to fade.
The sect master of Inuitian sect had finally stepped out from behind the scenes. The sect master's gaze was warm yet deep.
As if he could peer straight into one's soul. Looked at you, speaking slowly. Shuchen Shengkubers.
The guard division to back Chu Hao, undermining the fairness of our grand tournament.
This is, indeed, a grave crime, and this crime shall be punished by me. This is the first justice the sect owes you.
He paused, then shifted his tone. Chu Fan, you were born with a saintly
Making you a genius unmatched in our Yuintan sects for 300 years.
3 years ago, the sect failed to protect you, allowing a brilliant pearl to be covered in dust. Now that you have returned, we shall restore your status and return your glory.
This is the second justice the sect owes you.
If you refuse these 2 acts of justice, you would be tossing Yuinsen sect aside like a worn-out shoe. Do you truly wish to go that far? His words were calm and measured, yet every single word carried immense weight. He threw the choice back to you in a way you couldn't possibly refuse. If you stay, the sect will grant you justice and restore your glory. But if you insist on leaving,
You will be slapping the face of the entire Onutian sect.
now everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what you would choose. You smiled, a faint, gentle smile.
Like the first winter sun melting the last trace of frost on your face. Sigmaster, you overstate things.
You gave a slight nod in the sect master's direction,
It wasn't a formal bow.
but rather an acknowledgement of equals. This disciple has never once thought of abandoning the sect. These words made the hearts of many elders on the high platform skip a beat. But then, your tone suddenly shifted.
Your gaze suddenly becomes razor sharp. 3 years ago, Chu Feng was the sect's holy son.
But today, the one standing here is nothing but a debt collector. The title of Holy Son was buried long ago, along with the very bone that was ripped from his body. This disciple does not want Instantly, shockwaves ripple through the
He actually rejected the position of Holy Son. That is the most revered status among the younger generation of the Yuquishan sect.
Chu Hao didn't hesitate to commit a heinous crime just to get his hands on it.
And yet, at the very moment you finally reclaim it, you throw it away like it's nothing.
On the high platform, Chu Tiansheng's deathly pale face flushes with a morbid redness from the sheer shock.
His greatest obsession is completely worthless in your eyes.
What an absolute irony.
A flicker of appreciation flashes in the sect master's eyes.
He asks with great interest,
Then, what is it that you want?
your gaze sweeps past the sect master, looking as if you are staring at the entire Renutian sect, standing in this mist-shrouded arena.
Your voice becomes crystal clear in this moment.
Filled with unwavering resolve. This disciple does not seek empty I only care about what is real.
I hear there is a samsara pool in the back mountain of the sect.
No one below the life and death realm elders and the sect master is permitted to enter. Rumor has it that the power within the pool can cleanse one's marrow, reconstruct their bones, and break through the cycle of reincarnation. This disciple wishes to enter and see for myself. Boom! This single demand is like a massive boulder crashing into a calm lake, stirring up a storm of utter shock.
The Samsara Pool. That is the legendary sacred ground of the Yunshin sect.
The ultimate forbidden zone within forbidden zones.
Your ambition was never about the position of the Holy Son at all. What you want is the sect's most core, fundamental destiny. Impute it. A hot-tempered elder barks instinctively.
But the sect master merely raises his hand, forcing him to swallow the rest of his words. The sect master's gaze grows heavier than ever before. Only after a long silence does he speak slowly. The Samsara Pool. Since the founding of our sect,
Only those with monumental contributions to the sect
can be granted entry by the sect master's special permission. What grounds? Exactly. On what grounds? By what right? You remain perfectly calm,
pointing a finger at your own chest. That holy bone, perfectly fusing with your body,
as it glows with an increasingly brilliant divine light.
Is this right here enough?
You then raise your hand, pointing from afar at the high platform.
At that, creased and completely out of control, Xu Changxiu.
By cleansing the sect of traitors and ridding us of a threat that would shake our very foundations. Is that enough?
Finally, your gaze falls back onto the sect master.
Your eyes flash with an unquestionable, razor-sharp confidence.
Or perhaps, because the future me will lead the Atunjan sect to heights it has never seen before.
Is that reason enough? 3 questions, each one more arrogant than the last.
Each one hitting harder than the last.
The entire hall falls dead silent. Your earth-shattering declaration leaves everyone absolutely paralyzed with shock. You are pleading. You are demanding an equal exchange.
Ha ha! Ha 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 ha!
Suddenly, the sect master throws his head back and laughs.
His laughter is filled with pure delight and admiration. Good. Excellent. What a Chu fan.
As his laughter fades,
His majestic gaze sweeps across the room. His voice booms like a great temple bell, echoing through the heavens.
徐见小，儿子的归简蛾子儿子。
Harbored greedy intentions and plotted against the sect's greatest genius. Effective immediately, he is stripped of his position as great elder. His cultivation shall be completely sealed, and he will be locked away in the depths of the demon-suppressing tower, never to see the light of day again.
As for Chu Hao, he is nothing but a thief.
Expel him from the Yukinshin sect.
His name shall be completely erased from our ancestral records, and his life or death shall no longer have anything to do with the Utinshin sect.
With those decrees made,
His gaze finally returns to you.
With an unprecedented solemnity, he says, "Your request is granted.
In 3 days, I will personally open the Samsara Pool for you."
The crowd erupts into an uproar, and then that uproar turns into an overwhelming wave of awe. You've got what you wanted.
Nodding to the sect master once more, you say, "Thank you, sect master." But just as you turn to leave with the sect deacons, the sect master's deeply meaningful voice echoes behind you once more. Chu fan, you must remember the return of the sacred bone is your glory, but it could also mean your end. The 9-cycle samsara scripture can bring you back from the dead, but it might not protect you from those who covet your power. Certain ancient beings can sense a natural-born sacred bone far more keenly than you or I can ever imagine. Before you enter the samsara pool, watch your back.
with those words, the surrounding noise
Is instantly cut off behind you by an invisible wall. A deacon from the Hall of Law Enforcement steps up to your side, bowing slightly to you.
They make a polite gesture to guide you forward. Their attitude is deeply respectful.
Senior Brother Chu, the sect master has issued an order. Please return to your old residence to rest for now. The Samsara ruler will open in 3 days. We will come to guide you when the time comes.
You know.
Without saying a single word.
Following their guidance, you step down from the arena.
Wherever you go, the crowd automatically parts like a shifting tide, clearing a wide path just for you. After today, the winds of change have swept through the Anutishan sect, but don't lead you to a core disciple's estate.
Instead, they take you to a somewhat remote, isolated corner.
There stands a lonely, solitary courtyard. The walls are overgrown with green vines, and the door knocker is covered in thick rust. This was once your home. Senior Brother Chu, we have arrived.
The disciple stops in his tracks, his expression turning slightly complicated. No one has cared for this place in 3 years.
Please forgive the state of it. Thank you for your trouble.
Your voice carries no emotion whatsoever.
They bow respectfully and withdraw. You stand alone before the courtyard gate. Reaching out, you gently push open the half-closed wooden door. With a long, heavy creak, the door opens like a weary sigh from years burdened by time. Inside, a thick layer of fallen leaves and dust has gathered on the stone table. The few spiritual plants in the corner have long since withered and died. This place has been completely forgotten by time. You walk straight into the main house. Reaching back, you shut the door behind you. With a soft thud, the outside world is completely shut out. The very moment the wooden door closes, your rigidly upright posture suddenly sways violently. The calm on your face, far too mature for your age, shatters like cracking ice. You dash to the table in a single step, bracing yourself with one hand just to stay on your feet. You open your mouth, but what you cough up isn't golden liquid, but a burst of chaotic, turbulent spiritual energy. Your clean-cut face instantly turns pale as a sheet, and sweat the size of beans begins to pour from your forehead. Inside your body, everything has devolved into a chaotic, raging battlefield. From your chest, the newly reborn sacred bone continuously radiates a torrent of pure, unyielding yang energy. This sacred and vast golden energy clashes with the black and white qi in your dantian, which blends the absolute laws of life, death, and reincarnation. Feeling like ancient ice buried deep beneath the sea. It is silent, yet absolutely unyielding. Just as one mountain cannot hold two tigers, these two completely opposing peak-level forces are waging a silent yet incredibly perilous war inside your body. The celestial light washes through your meridians, bringing a searing, burning pain, while the black and white qi swirls and suppresses it, bringing a bone-chilling cold. So, this is what the sect master really meant. Leaning against the table, you slowly slide down to the floor, gasping heavily. The return of the sacred bone brought glory, but with the earth trial over, the sect master saw right through your tough front. These 3 days are your real test of survival. If you cannot find a way to balance these two forces before entering the reincarnation pool, forget about facing future challenges. You will likely become the first disciple in the history of the Yuanshan sect to implode and die from having too much power. In the dead silence of the night, you sit cross-legged, your eyes shut tight, struggling to guide those two starkly contrasting forces. Right now, you are at the strongest point of your life, yet also the most vulnerable. A vast treasure lies within you, but you don't have the key to open it. Instead, you must constantly worry about this vault of power exploding from the inside. Just as you are fully focused, your mind almost completely shut off from the outside world, a faint, chilling thread of divine sense, like a venomous snake lurking in the shadows, silently glides over the courtyard wall. It doesn't force its way in. It merely brushes the edge before quickly withdrawing. The owner of this probing consciousness is extremely cautious and extremely patient. Yet, almost at the exact same moment, your eyes snap open inside the dark room. There is no golden glow of the sacred bone in your eyes, nor any trace of reincarnation. Only a pure, bone-chilling intent to kill. Someone has arrived. Faster than you expected. Knock. 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 3 slow, measured knocks echo through the room. Every single rap feels like an invisible hammer, striking precisely against the silence of the night, tugging at the tense nerves of everyone inside and outside the courtyard. Inside the courtyard, you instantly pull back your cold, iron-like divine sense, priming the reincarnation traps laid throughout the yard, ready to trigger. But right now, you cannot tell if the person outside is friend or foe. Meanwhile, the 3 assassins lurking outside the courtyard find their breathing suddenly hitching. They freeze like 3 statues, locked in their pre-strike stances, their eyes wide with absolute shock. Who is this? When did they get here? And how did they bypass the spiritual blockade of all 3 of them? A cascade of questions turns into a chilling dread, surging from their spines straight to their skulls. And they are supposed to be death-worn assassins. They weren't fools. For someone to walk right up to the door without them sensing a single thing meant her power was far beyond what they could handle. Under the pale moonlight, a figure clad in moon-white robes stood there, utterly still. She paid no mind to the deadly intent lurking in the shadows, as if that suffocating pressure, enough to terrify any ordinary cultivator, was nothing more than a cool night breeze. Yo, Master Chu Fan. I am Yujing Yumoye, Tailash. Her voice, cold and clear as moonlight, pierced through the thin wooden door, reaching your ears with perfect clarity. Forgive my unannounced visit. I mean no harm. Your pupils constricted instantly. You never expected it to be her. The only one who had shown you kindness back at the martial arts arena, yet remained as distant and unreachable as the clouds. The saintess of Yuan Palace. What was she doing here? You didn't open the door immediately. The chaotic energy clashing inside you was still raging furiously. At this moment, you were more vulnerable than a wounded cub. 2. Any unpredictable variable could bring down utter ruin upon you. Outside, Yuchini seemed to have sensed your hesitation. She didn't press you. Instead, her voice softened a fraction as she continued. I imagine that things might not be going so well for you right now, young master. And if those 3 guests inside find it inconvenient, I would be happy to escort them out on your behalf. Though her voice wasn't loud, it struck like a sudden clap of thunder within the minds of the 3 assassins. She found us. She knew they were there from the very beginning. One of the assassins couldn't hold back any longer.
A murderous glint flashed in his eyes as he prepared to strike with everything he had, regardless of the consequences.
The consequences of failing this mission was something they understood all too well. But the comrade beside him firmly grabbed his shoulder and slowly shook his head. This is a covert assassination. But now, the Saintess of Buin Palace is right here. But both witness and evidence.
Harming him is a small matter, but if we drag Yu Qingning into this,
it will push the Alchemy Hall and the entire Yuzunit sect right into the line of fire. This was a responsibility they simply couldn't shoulder. The three assassins exchanged glances, seeing the sheer terror and bitter frustration in each other's eyes.
they melted into the shadows like ghosts.
Slipping away without a single sound.
The mission was a complete failure.
As those three deadly auras receded like an ebbing tide, the suffocating air around the courtyard finally seemed to breathe again. After a moment of dead silence,
You drag your battered, exhausted body, taking one agonizing step after another toward the door. You reach out and slide back the heavy wooden bolt. Creak. The door swings open. Light pours in like a river of liquid silver, instantly flooding the pitch-black room
and illuminating the breathtakingly beautiful face standing just outside. It is Yu Qingning.
She is holding a warm, delicate white jade box in her hands. Seeing your deathly pale face, a flash of quiet understanding crosses her cold, beautiful eyes.
It seems I didn't arrive too late.
You don't say a word. You just stare at her, your eyes filled with a storm of complex emotions. Your mind screams at you to stay on guard,
But the two violent forces clashing inside your body are tearing your sanity to shreds.
you desperately need help.
Mean? Yu Qing doesn't seem to mind your silence.
She steps gracefully into the courtyard.
Reaching back to quietly close the wooden door behind her.
She holds the jade box out to you.
Instantly, a cool, soothing herbal scent fills the air. This is the 9-turn Jade Dew, she says, a sacred medicine guarded closely by my Buin Palace.
It won't boost your cultivation,
But it can temporarily suppress and neutralize any clashing energies inside you,
buying you the precious time you need right now.
You look into her eyes, clear and deep as autumn water.
There is no fake politeness in them.
And no condescending pity.
In silence, you reach out and take the jade box.
Thank you. You managed to say,
Your voice raspy and strained.
This is the very first time you have thanked anyone since your return to the Yuanshin sect.
Hearing those words,
The faint, barely noticeable smile softens Yu Qingning's icy face. Like the first thaw of spring snow. In Studity, you saved every single disciple of our Buin Palace back in the Valley of Myriad Generations. This small token of gratitude is nothing compared to that. She is making it clear that she is simply returning a favor.
You open the jade box,
And a jade green elixir pill, the size of a longan fruit, lies quietly inside. Without a moment of hesitation,
you swallow it right down.
the elixir melts the instant it touches your tongue, turning into a cool, sweet, flowing stream that instantly rushes through your entire body. It had been rampaging wildly inside you.
And now, the golden light and the black and white energies, which had been crashing like two primeval beasts, suddenly quiet down, as if tamed under this soothing, cool power. Their violent aura slowly recedes.
Although it is only a temporary suppression,
For you, it is already a godsend. Some color finally returns to your pale face. You sit down cross-legged, seizing every single breath to regulate your internal energy.
at the same time you ask, I'm curious, why did you think I would need this?
Baya walks gracefully over to the dust-covered stone table.
With a gentle wave of her delicate hand,
A soft breeze sweeps the dust away,
she sits down gracefully,
as if this weren't a ruined, dilapidated courtyard,
but a celestial palace shrouded in mist.
I once read about the natural sacred bone in an ancient text, she says. It is the peak of yang energy, fierce and unyielding, with
all creation, and reshape the universe itself. When it returns to its host, it brings not just glory, but also the most brutal trial.
She pauses, her beautiful eyes turning to look at you.
With a hint of curiosity in her gaze. And as for your cultivation technique, young master, though I cannot fully decipher it,
I can feel the true essence of samsara buried deep beneath that aura of destruction.
that is a path completely opposite to life.
The very absolute of death.
Yet life and death are not opposites. They form a perfect circle. What you lack might not be suppression,
But an opportunity to make them flow together. The word flow hits you like a bolt of lightning splitting the heavens, instantly clearing all the fog in your mind. Yes, you had only been thinking about how to make these two forces balance each other,
how to draw boundaries between them,
and how to make them coexist in peace.
but you forgot that the very foundation of the 9 revolutions, Samsara Sutra, is samsara itself. Life and death are merely parts of this eternal loop.
The sacred bone represents the pinnacle of life. The power of annihilation represents the absolute limit of death.
You have always treated them as mortal enemies, like fire and water, forgetting that even fire and water can merge and flow together. To drive the wheel of reincarnation with the life force of the sacred valley, and to refine the soul of the sacred valley with the deathly intent of reincarnation. This is the true cultivation path of the 9 revolutions reincarnation scripture, after the sacred valley's return. This supreme, unprecedented path suddenly opens up before you.
A massive wave of shock crashes through your heart.
You look deeply at Yu Qingning. This woman hasn't just brought you life-saving medicine. She has handed you a monumental opportunity that could completely change your path in life.
I owe you a favor.
You say in a deep voice. Yuan Qingqing smiles softly.
Perhaps in the future, our Baiyun Palace will need young Master Chu's help.
She is incredibly smart.
She doesn't reject your offer.
Instead, she cleverly turns this favor into a future alliance.
Right at that moment,
Both Yu and Ye Qingyan stiffen.
You both look up at the sky just beyond the gates of the Yuan-Tishan sect.
boom, a terrifying, suffocating pressure.
Erupts like a volcano.
It surges into the heavens from just outside the mountain gates.
The aura is wildly domineering and majestic, carrying the absolute, unquestionable majesty of an emperor. In an instant, it blankets the entire Rutian sect. Then, a booming voice, majestic as thunder, then goes through the clouds, exploding in the ears of every single disciple. Sect Master of Suenten Sect, get your ass out here! Hand over the prized prodigy of our Chu family!
The Chu family of the royal city. They have finally arrived.
Rumble. That voice is an actual thunder, yet it is far more majestic, far more terrifying, and infinitely more brutal. It crashes down like an invisible mountain from the heavens, pressing down mercilessly on your chest and the heart of every single disciple. Under this crushing pressure, the entire sect falls into a deathly silence. Countless disciples and elders, currently cultivating or refining pills, turn pale with shock. They all look up, staring in horror toward the mountain gates. That aura is far more powerful than any elder they have ever known.
It is even more domineering than the presence their sect master occasionally unleashes.
And infinitely more pure. It carries the chilling majesty of a ruler who's held the power of life and death for far too long.
Inside the courtyard,
Yu Qingying's cold eyes instantly turn dead serious.
she locks eyes with you, both of you knowing exactly who it is. The Chu family of the royal city.
Your voice is incredibly soft,
Yet terrifyingly clear.
You have returned to the Onichian sect, and now it is time to settle the score.
屈全祥还浮心自自的 moment，莽了狗油。
But you never expected it to come so quickly.
Or with such overwhelming force.
They are here for you.
And they're here for the Sacred Valley.
Yi Qing stands up and walks over to the moon gate.
Peering through the gap, she looks up at the sky, now swallowed by a terrifying pressure.
不出一天想如意。
Justice isn't what they're after. They just want an excuse to drag you away.
My brother, Chu Qiansheng, has accomplished so much for the Yuqian sect.
Yet today, a vile criminal slandered him, stripped him of his cultivation, and locked him away in the demon-suppressing tower.
The booming, majestic voice thunders once again.
This time, the fury in it is so intense it feels almost physical.
Think, Master of Yuatan, I, Chu Tempa, did not come here today to debate scriptures or discuss philosophy. I have only one question. Are you going to clean your own house? Or do I have to do it for you?
The moment those words fall, a colossal black flying ship rips through the clouds, blotting out the sun. Like a terrifying beast from primeval times, the dark vessel
Hovers right above the Yutanshin sect's protective array.
at the bow of the ship.
A middle-aged man stands in jet black silken robes,
He shares 70% of Chu Qiansheng's features.
but his aura is 100 times more majestic, standing with his hands behind his back. His eyes flash like lightning,
His divine consciousness vast as an ocean.
locked completely onto the depths of the Yunichin sect.
He is from the royal city, one of the current leaders of the Chu family.
And Chu Jiansheng's biological elder brother.
Chu Xianba, you can't afford to wait anymore.
Your expression has never been more grim.
The vile criminal Chu Temba speaks of is you.
And you know that, while he seems to be standing up for Ju Qiansheng, having his divine sense locked onto you means something far worse. If you are taken away today,
You'll never get another chance to make a comeback.
The secrets of the Sacred Valley and the secrets of the Reincarnation Mirror will all be stolen from you.
you've run out of time. Looking down at the 9-turn jade nectar in your hand,
You look deeply at Ye Qingyi standing in front of you, as if reading your mind. Ye Qingyi, he didn't say another word.
with a simple wave of his hand,
A gentle shroud of moonlight silently enveloped the entire courtyard, shielding it from any prying eyes. Break through in peace. He turned his back to you, standing tall like a guardian deity.
his cold voice carried absolute, unquestionable resolve. Outside the sect gate stands the sect master of the Wenqian sect, and inside this courtyard, you have me.
Unless I fall,
No one will take a single step through this door. Her heart jolts with emotion. Looking at his slender yet resolutely firm back, 1,000 words melt into a single deep gaze. You engrave his protection deep into your soul. Without a moment's hesitation, you cross your legs and sit down, swallowing a 9-revolution jade nectar pill in a single gulp.
meanwhile, in front of the Yuanshan sect's gate, the space begins to ripple slightly.
The figure of Xuanzong, the sect master of the Yuxin sect, appears silently.
He looks up at the massive black flying vessel, his expression calm,
Yet a deep solemnity hides in the depths of his eyes.
出钱吧，为何不卖的银月？
Your temper is as fiery as ever.
The Sectmaster's voice isn't loud, yet it echoes clearly across the sky, dispersing the crushing aura that weighed heavily on the disciples.
Fade your pleasantries.
出钱吧，拐耳刀。
His gaze icy.
My younger brother guarded your elixir hall for 100 years. Even if he had no achievements, his tireless service cannot be denied. Yet now he is ruined by a villain who should have perished 3 years ago.
Ending up in such a miserable state.
Is this how your Averentian sect treats its loyal champions?
A loyal champion?
Hearing this, a faint mocking smile plays on the Sectmaster's lips.
You and I both know exactly what crimes Chu Tengxiong committed.
If not for the past ties between our families, he wouldn't have just been imprisoned in the demon-suppressing pagoda. His very body and soul would have been completely obliterated.
Insolent! Chu Tenba roars in sheer fury, his terrifying aura erupting with even greater force.
A pathetic accusation of stealing the sacred bone. And you think that's enough to ruin the golden prodigy of our Chu family? I'd love to see just what kind of divine being this so-called original owner of the sacred bone really is. Once again, his divine sense swept across the entire Yuquishan sect, completely unrestrained. But this time, when his divine sense swept over that remote, run-down courtyard where you were staying,
It felt as though it slammed into a flexible yet rock-solid barrier and was effortlessly bounced right back.
a flicker of surprise and suspicion flashed across Chutemba's eyes. The Sectmaster's eyes shifted slightly, knowing instantly that the young lady from Baiyun Palace had made her move to protect you.
He immediately came up with a plan.
He raised his voice and boomed.
Chutemba!
Chu Fan is a disciple of our Whitsun sect now. In 3 days, he will enter the reincarnation pool. This is strictly our sect's internal affair.
And it is certainly not the place of the royal city Chu family to dictate what we do.
He was doing this to buy you time, because he knew that time was the one thing you desperately needed right now. The reincarnation pool. Chutemba reacted as if he had just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. He threw his head back and roared with laughter. His laughter was dripping with utter disdain and mockery. Fine, what a grand gesture, this reincarnation pool.
I will give him this one chance.
Suddenly, his expression darkened.
His voice turned bone-chillingly cold, cutting through the air. 3 days from now, I will stand right here and watch him enter that pool with my own eyes. If he can trigger an anomaly in the reincarnation pool, proving that he truly possesses a grand destiny, then I, Chutemba, will turn around and leave without another word. We will take today's loss on the chin and speak no more of it. But if his voice suddenly sounded like 10,000-year-old ice, he fails to trigger anything, or perishes inside, then it proves he is nothing but a fraud who stole his way to fame, a thief who stole my nephew Chu Hao's destiny. When that time comes, not only will I demand that the Akushan sect hand over his dead body, but you will also have to bow down and respectfully escort my brother, Chu Tinsheng, out of the demon-suppressing tower. The moment those words left his mouth, the Awisina sect master's face darkened instantly. What a vicious, unavoidable trap. This was never a fair wager. It was a calculated, lethal trap designed to destroy you. Meanwhile, inside the small courtyard, you remained completely oblivious to the power struggle happening outside. You focused entirely on the potent medicine of the 9-turn jade dew, melting inside you like a cool, refreshing spring. Under this gentle, balanced force, the violently clashing golden light of the sacred bone and the black and white energy of the reincarnation chi finally reached a delicate, temporary balance. This is only temporary. In your mind, Yu Ting's words echo. Life and death are not opposites, but a seamless cycle. A perfect circle. You don't want to suppress them, nor do you want a simple balance. No, you want to build an unprecedented cycle, seeking your consciousness deep into your core. You stop trying to separate those two rival forces. Instead, you make a wild, crazy move. You actively guide the black and white energy of samsara, the absolute peak of death, like a winding, luminous river. Slowly and carefully, you guide them to wrap around your sacred bone, shining like a brilliant sun, representing the pinnacle of life. This is not a fusion. It is a sacrifice, nourishing life with death. The exact moment the black and white energy touches the sacred bone, your entire body jolts violently with an agonizing, indescribable pain. Yet, a profound, mystical realization explodes deep within your soul at the same time. The golden light of the sacred bone doesn't reject it at all. Instead, like parched earth welcoming a sudden rain, it lets out a joyful, resonant hum. It begins to devour that deathly energy of annihilation. Like crazy, tempered by the deathly energy, the golden light becomes purer and more refined. A trace of samsara's profound mystery blends into its sacred aura. Meanwhile, the black and white energy, having surrendered its deathly chi, does not weaken at all. Instead, it draws a massive, surging life force from the newly reborn golden light of the sacred bone. It becomes more fluid, more solid. Within that life force, the seed of ultimate annihilation is born, forming a perfect cycle of life and death inside your body, with the sacred bone as the yang pole and the origin of samsara as the yin pole. Your cultivation base begins to stabilize. No more wild spikes, no more sudden drops. Instead, it climbs steadily at an unprecedented speed. Your foundation becomes incredibly solid. But the very moment this cycle completes its first rotation, right on the brilliant sacred bone in your chest, the very center, where the golden light and the black and white energies intertwine, a thread of chaos quietly emerges. It is thinner than a strand of hair, yet it seems capable of devouring all light and color. At that exact moment, deep within the endless ruins at the center of the continent, a place forbidden to all living things, the 10 eyelids of a shattered ancient statue, sealed for billions of years, seem to tremble, ever so slightly, with immense struggle. A faint consciousness, almost imperceptible, crosses through endless space and time, kickosing through the ruins. Whose Tao fruit is this?